Right, if they don't want to silence your cell phones, you can't pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you. This is November 19th work session. Michael, do you have any particular order?
That's what we got on the screen, sir.
Right on. All right.
Cal, you're up.
Yeah.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I thought as part of our MOA discussion, we would also take a few minutes just to talk about what we've seen in programming in 2024. And so I asked Amy to come and share. We didn't expect our extension committee commissioners to be so well prepared today. Thank you for that. So Amy is just going to share some highlights and overviews of our 2024 programming to talk about numbers and impacts real briefly.
All right, good morning. So this is the time of year where our 4-H members are spending some time reflecting on their past year and what their growth is. So we as staff are doing the same thing. So just wanted to share some of those highlights with you. We ended the year with 796 participants in Waseca County. So that number is a little bit different than enrollment. We had 289 youth that actually enrolled in the program through our community clubs and our after-school programs. And that number is about the same as what it was in 23. Our 796 participants, that number has increased. Those are the number of kids that have done anything with 4-H. A lot of them have come to us through the Pop Club at the farmers market, some through a free tree program that our county 4-H ambassadors put on in the spring, some of our other summer programming, but that number has increased. So we are reaching, I think it's about 24% of the youth in Waseca County that would be of 4-H age. So I'm pretty pleased with that number. We had 59 new 4-H members in Waseca County. 49 of those new members were community club members. So usually when we start our after school programs, we see a big jump in new members because of those after school kids, because they're kids that aren't normally getting that chance to participate in 4-H. But the fact that 10 of those first year members were after school and the rest joined community clubs. That was a good number to see, especially since we had 37 new community club members the prior year. So we were up by about 12. Our retention rates continue to look very well. So not only are kids joining our programs, but they're sticking around and they're participating. We retain 79% of our youth when you include our program agreements for those after school programs. If we take those program agreement kids out, 87% of our county, our community club members came back to 4-H. That were in 2023, they came back for another year in 2024. Statewide, that retention number is about 87%, or excuse me, in the 70s. So to see an 87% number in our community club members that are staying in 4-H, that's a great thing. We had our county fair showcase, and of course they had other opportunities to showcase their learning and demonstrating that growth through both the county fair, state horse show, state dog show, just to name a few. 169 youth participated in our county showcase this past summer. And they brought 667 exhibits and did over 1,100 entries. So those numbers are continuing to rise too, which when you factor in the early county fair that we have, sometimes you don't always see growth in exhibit numbers, but we have been seeing growth each year. A few more things are coming into the building and coming into our barns, so that's exciting that we're continuing to grow that county fair experience as well. And of course, Minnesota 4-H is all about having our youth learn and lead. And we want those adult volunteers to create that high quality learning environment. So when you look at that leading and learning aspect of it, 90% of our 4-Hers reported having the opportunity to lead. So whether it was a club leadership role or participating in the county ambassador program, 9 out of 10 kids said, yep, I was able to do some sort of leadership experience. Some of that came through our a leader program, or helping with things like 3-5-4 club. But they did have the opportunity to lead. 92% of them reported gaining confidence in their leadership. So not only are they leading, but they feel like they're improving their skills. And then when it comes to serving the community, 85% of our 4-H members said that they served their communities while they were part of Waseca County 4-H. And of course, none of this would be possible without our screen volunteers. And we have 64 adult volunteers in our program that help create those high quality learning environments. So that's just a quick snapshot on what our numbers are looking like. If you have questions on specifics or any other things, let me know. I'm happy to answer anything you have questions.
I just want to say I was at the banquet last Friday, and you know, as always, I'm impressed with the leadership the kids show. They know where they're going. They know what spot they're supposed to land on and what they're supposed to be doing and when they're supposed to be doing it. And for that variety of age and abilities, as always, I was very impressed. Thank you for your work.
Anyone else, questions?
I kudos to you guys in the program on Friday night.
Friday.
Commissioner Walter and I were there, and that impressed me too, because I seen you were off to the side. And it was like the kids knew exactly what to do.
And it's natural, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
was like 2 hours long, at least 2 hours long. And you got up in front a couple times, but it was a very good program.
Yes, yeah, those older kids kind of have mentored the younger ones, and then as they get older, and I know I joked with a couple of them last week, like, I'll drop things off and you guys can handle it from there, like, no problem, baby, we got this. Like, I really didn't need to be there, like.
I like the speaking part of it, because a lot of those kids, don't get that opportunity to get up in front of a group of their peers. And some of them struggled just a little bit, but I thought, they're doing really good.
Yeah.
Moving forward. And you have one, Alexis.
Yes, Alexis Myers, she has been a 4-H member for 7 years. Every year she takes on a little bit more and more of a leadership opportunity. She's been a county 4-H ambassador a number of years, club officer, been on the green team for 3 years. But she was selected to attend the National 4-H Congress in Atlanta, Georgia at the end of the month. There's 9 youth in Minnesota that were selected to go, so it's impressive that we get to send somebody from Waseca County. And Commissioner Krause and I were talking, this is the first one that I remember being selected to go to Congress since I've been here, and that's been over 20 years. So kudos to Alexis for taking opportunities to lead. And if you're interested, after she's back, we can certainly have her come to a board meeting and give you a little recap of her trip. I'm sure she would be more than happy to do that.
You mentioned,
I would love that.
yeah, I would like that. That would be really good. You mentioned the green team.
Yes.
I don't know if everybody knows what they.
So the last 3 county fairs, we've hired a team of youth that have ranged 5 to 6 youth that help during county fairs. So they're really that first point of contact in the 4-H building. This past summer, because of staffing changes, we had them come in ahead of time and help do a lot of that organization thing, like the stall cards and the back tags and entry tags, all of that. So they helped put all that together, but they're really the ones that are talking with the families that come into the 4-H building, handing out the state fair paperwork, looking things over. Anytime we need something like, hey, can you go grab this? Can you go check on this? Green team is there. So we do give them a little stipend out of our 4-H budget, but certainly a good leadership opportunity for them.
I think overall, 4-H has taken our youth and given them a positive direction to go. Hoping that they continue in that direction and pull them from other activities that could be detrimental to their
Correct.
freedom later on in the world. So it's nice to have that. It's nice to have that outlet for them to go and have positive feedback from everybody. I really appreciate you guys' input and keeping it going.
Thank you. And I think that Amy is excellent at work in this county, just continues to show in more and more ways. I think that what is startling to me is that 24%, based on her numbers, it looks as though she's reaching 24% of the youth that are 4-H age. And so that is our kindergarten through 1 year past high school. And that's a very exciting number, especially, you know, I've shared with you, I have an 8-county region. I don't know that any of my other counties can say that. And so that's really great to hear. But what's even more exciting is that Amy has continued to talk to our county extension committee about the other opportunities that exist as far as community outreach. And that led to the proposal that I'm here to talk with you again about today, our memorandum of agreement between Waseca County and the University of Minnesota. Based upon the work that Amy is currently doing, as well as the other opportunities that she's been able to discuss with the committee, they have brought forward the proposal to you of going to a 1.5 FTE here in Waseca County. So adding another half-time educator that would allow for more community outreach in order to grow that number and reach folks that maybe are not currently engaging in the 4-H program. So when Commissioner Milbrath talks about those people that are youth that are maybe engaged in those activities that could potentially impact their freedoms in the future. I like how you said that. You know, doing some more connections there, building out some of the great programs that we're already seeing, such as the Power of Produce with our farmers markets and other opportunities that exist. And so this is a 3-year memorandum of agreement from 2025 through 2027. The proposal that is in front of you today includes that 1.5 FTE for our educators, and then also some summer temp casual support. So this would be the intern position, as you may have formerly heard it. Now we are calling it a summer temp casual position. It would be for 400 hours. That is a slight increase from where we have been previous years, just because we have seen that our intern has consistently run out of hours before they have been able to complete all of the work. And so we did, the county extension committee did add in a few additional hours in order to help that person get through the summer. So what we're looking at for cost is in 2025 with the temp casual and the 1.5 FTE for educators is $159,025. In 2026, there would be a 3% increase, which would take us to $163,800. And then in 2027, another 3%, which would be $168,730. This is an all-in package, meaning this includes the salaries, benefits, travel, professional development, staff development, per diems, everything. So with all of these positions, it is not that I come back to you in a couple of months and say, oh, by the way, I need a little more money. This is all in. And those costs will be consistent throughout the 3 years of this agreement. Dean Beverly Durden has given us, you know, this is what we need to get to the end of this agreement. And so we will not be coming back to you for any additional increase over the life of the agreement.
What's the budget in 24?
The cost of what we are paying in 2024 with the one full-time educator, and we had summer support of 360 hours. The investment that Waseca County's made into extension is $86,307.
That's apples to apples in this other one, same costs,
Exact same cost.
other than that halftime.
Yes, the package included all of the same pieces in 2024 as what our new agreement 2025 through 2027 covers.
So that increase is from the halftime, extra halftime, and then salary increases.
So there is an increase. I'm not gonna hide that. The base cost of an educator, a full-time educator, went from $80,648 up to $100,000 in the new MOA. And that is due to a variety of things, insurance costs, wage adjustments that we've needed to make because we have not stayed on track with salaries within our program, and so making some corrections there. Also, it's hard to remember back to 2021, but when the regional director stood in front of you then, there was actually a reduction in costs. That because we wanted to show that we were good partners with our counties, and we knew that coming out of COVID, there were some different challenges. That was good for us then. However, now it has put us behind the ball a bit, which has contributed to this large increase that we're asking going into 2025. So the increase that you're seeing is not only the addition of a 0.5 FTE and an increase in hours for our temp casual position, but also the fact that we have had to take some extra steps in order to be whole and provide our employees with what they need in order to do the good work that they are.
Well, I'm probably the reason you're back here, and I apologize if.
No, I'm happy to be back.
Work for you. You know, it's, the trouble I have is, you know, it's compounded this year because of this catch up in salaries and then adding a halftime.
Mhm.
And the other thing that kind of bothers me is we're exposing ourselves again by another halftime to a state contract. This can happen again, a salary jump like this, and now then we're gonna be at 1.5. That's where I had suggested, and I don't know if that was when you were here, if that was a discussion amongst us, about if we could employ that halftime person instead of a state contract.
And unfortunately, that is not how extension and 4-H work. Because of the requirements that we have to follow, with how USDA licenses and oversees the 4-H program, that is only done through the land grant university. And so because of that, the employees have to be, through our contract.
So because they're considered an educator? Is that
Yes.
why?
Yes.
Okay. Because other help can be.
Yes.
Like the receptionist and that type of stuff.
Yes, it is strictly because of that educator piece. And
Okay.
I think that educator, the value of the educator is truly what allows us to have the reach, and to be a legitimate source of youth development programming across the county.
What skin in the game does the University of Minnesota have in this? As far as the state, I mean, so, you know, you said that insurance has gone up, we realize that.
Mhm.
And there's other partial educator, but I mean, is this something that we're completely funding as a county? And the state is just telling us what to do?
Excellent question. So I would be happy to provide you some additional data if that would be helpful. There is a discrepancy. This cost does not cover everything. There are still dollars that we are contributing through our federal, state, and private dollars that the University of Minnesota Extension gets through donors and other programming fees in order to cover all of the costs of maintaining employees here in Waseca County. There's also a full regional team behind the scenes that many of you don't have the opportunity to interact with that are supporting Amy in the work that she does. Not only her supervisor, but there's also a regional educator who is here at County Fair Time to help make sure that all of the livestock is entered correctly and cared for, so that when the state vet comes and does their walkthrough, those animals aren't sent home because they haven't met certain criteria. There is an educator who helps Amy if there are volunteer issues, so that Amy is able to remove herself from some of those difficult situations. And they are the ones that come in and help to mediate if there's any issues with volunteers, families, etc. In addition to all of the state and national programs that our youth are able to participate in. So there's a lot of other dollars that are being funneled in outside of this memorandum.
More so like tech support.
Tax support.
Well, I mean, like,
or-
just personal support.
Yes, yes, and actual dollars. So we do have a rundown that I'm happy to share with all of you that highlights that there, I believe it's just under $4,000 annually that is, is being covered through additional sources in addition to a lot of those outside things that are not funded through the MOA.
I think it's been helpful for me to have a clearer understanding of this half-time position as an educator, not just as additional administrative help. I wasn't sure which side of the line that landed on, and I thought that sets up a difficult issue in the office. If we're hiring one and the university hires the other and they're doing the same or some of the same job. That clarification helps me a lot. One of my questions is, are we going to be able to find a half-time educator?
Yes.
Okay.
I do believe because there are other places where we can share positions.
Okay.
It might not be a person who is 100%, they will be 50% of their time here in Waseca County, but the other 50% of their time might be in a neighboring county. We have some shifting in a variety of our positions. And so I do believe that we will be able to find some.
I had some other thoughts about the POP program and how that is, I know Amy has spent a significant amount of time on the POP program, and it has grown and become a beast of its own. At least my personal desire that our own farmers market, that there be a little more coordination there with the POP program. And I know right now there's not the bandwidth to make that happen. But there's possibilities that could make our farmers market be more effective as well. And I'm making an assumption that that might be some of the, this is where we gotta have a bandwidth. Yeah, I'm correct.
Yeah, and even though we're reaching those youth when they come to farmers market, I envision them having a stronger connection with 4-H and with a half-time person. If they were to commit to more pop club, more getting kids from pop club into our community club program.
How much interaction do you have between farmers market and 4-H? I know we've had 4-Hers helping at the farmers market.
Right.
Do we have them marketing at the farmers market?
Alexis has been there a couple Saturdays, each summer to do some 4-H promotion and things. But other than that, I think there hasn't been a lot of connection there. The farmers market doesn't have a strong organizational, there's not somebody in charge. There's not a board that leads the group.
It is herding the cat.
So, yes, to all.
In the nicest way. In the nicest way.
Right, right. Yes, there's a lot of potential there that I think could be good for both programs.
Thank you.
Yes. And also even to build upon that, I think another area where Amy sees an opportunity for this halftime educator to be able to do more work is with those after school programs. It's been something that Amy has been able to give some attention to, but if you have a person that their focus is those after school programs, those community type programs, and even potentially building some additional relationships within underrepresented communities, it only makes the program stronger and allow us to reach those folks that are at risk of other things.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this too. This is really helpful. It's always difficult, obviously, it's a budget, right? Get down to dollars and cents, and the dollars and cents are always the thing that make us come back and countywide question the service delivery. Well, is this really, are we getting what's the cost benefit ratio really happening? It's helpful for me to look at the numbers in terms of cost per individual or cost per child in this, even to Commissioner Gilchrist's points. What's the value add you're instilling in individuals now, and what's that investment versus maybe the cost of that investment from a different perspective in the future, and just one basis. And you look at that comparatively at the state of Minnesota's educational system, the state budget's $7,300 per student. It's not the total cost, that's just the state portion of it. This, we're talking about $320 per student or per individual, if even with the increase. So the 255, 399 of 800 local kids are participating in this program, it's only $300 per kid. So that seems like a relatively small investment in my mind, at it that way. I understand there's everything we talk about, it's always going to be the battle of philosophy versus fiscal. We're never going to get away from that. But you think about the spreading that over the impact of the actual individuals served, and there's more than that. There's families, of course, that are impacted too through this, that are also invested in spending their own time, resources, etc. But dividing that out over the course of the 800 students doesn't seem like a monolithic investment.
And if I may piggyback on Michael's point, Amy did a great job of calculating how much financial impact volunteers in the program made just during Fair Week. And the volunteers, both adults and youth, if we would have had to pay them, their value alone was almost $30,000 in the course of a week as to what they contributed, not only to 4-H programming, but also to the entire county fair before, during, and after. So I guess over 3 weeks, they would have generated $30,000. So there is a lot of investment.
Just so I put, this base educator salary increase. So is that the salary of somebody coming out of college getting hired as an educator?
So the way that this amount is determined is that we start with our base salary, which will in 2025 go up to, I believe it's $63,500 is the base coming out of college. And then we factor in those annual increases to also piece in how much we need moving forward. It's also important to recognize that the full benefits package that we are able to offer through the University of Minnesota is about 30% of their salary. And so the fringe cost that we have alone is quite high. And, much like the county has seen insurance costs go up, that has definitely been the case within our university system as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So given that it's effective for 2025, it's good. Bringing that. Anything else between then and now that you communicate to us, so that will be on the December 3rd agenda. Barring no other intervention.
It's good.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you.
Commissioners.
Right, we originally had slated 11:19 as the overall work session for monumentation, and this has been a conversation that has evolved and meandered over the last month or so, which is okay. It's a good thing, I think. But I at least wanted to take a few minutes to make sure we didn't just forget about it. But since there have been so many one-off conversations I've had with you as individuals or subcommittee conversations, I at least wanted to bring it back in this space. Sure, there is a collective mind going forward. As you are aware, we are in the process of trying to a GIS coordinator individual. That position is currently under the Land and Water Resources Department. There has been much conversation there too, to figure out, is this the best department long-term for this position with these specific skills and the interdepartmental requirements that will be needed. I can make an argument for a pretty strong argument for 3 different departments of why this position should land there, and here's why. That being said, Land and Water Resources is one of them. The thing we needed to change primarily on the job description is just formalizing some of that interdepartmental relationship, as well as bolstering it to some of the departmental specific tasks and functions that need to have in it. Need some synergy and assistance, in this context being Land and Water Resources. But there are other mouths to feed, such as Public Works, Assessor's Office, Planning and Zoning, Soil and Water, and others. So a large, I won't say a large chunk, but 20% or so of the overall job will be either interdepartmental or interagency, such as the city or cities that require some assistance for some special projects as well. Feeling pretty good. Most recently reviewed that draft yesterday, feeling pretty good of where it is landing. So where that ties to county surveyor and monumentation, certainly our GIS individual, whoever that is in the future, will have a large piece to play in the overall tracking and documenting and updating section corners and monumenting as we move forward. We know we have a grant awarded now, Milton Township, that would be completed through the end of next year. At this point in time, in my mind, and I think the mind of subcommittee, the last time we chatted, was to use that process as a litmus test for what we can accomplish in a relative period, being next year. We have funding from the state that will provide that testing for us, working with a local surveying company, and it will give us a better idea of how much can we do for how much cost. So that was a $300,000 award. We probably won't use all of that based upon, you know, the project area itself and the relative bids we received for each of those section corners. There are many counties that have a full-time hired county surveyor. It would not be new. This is kind of one of those nuanced pieces of statute that has survived for quite a while, where it used to be an elected position. We've gone away from that as a state for good reasons, because it is a very trained position, licensed position at this point, and there are yet many counties that work either by contract, appointment, or ordinance with a specific engineering firm to fulfill work as a county surveyor, though it is not a hired position. So where are we going with all of this? Ultimately, my plan in my mind is to not pursue a county surveyor in 2025. However, it's ultimately your decision-making prowess and budget for how you choose to do that. The things I will mention is we already spend $10,000 to $15,000 a year in public works for this function. For the road projects we have to have or hire, in this instance, professional and technical services for survey work to be out in front of our crews to do exactly what a county surveyor would do. The board has had conversations in the last couple of months of investing dollars as placeholders going forward for monumentization, which I don't think is a bad plan. But it then lends to the conversation of, if we're going to set aside $50,000-ish a year, is that more effective with the hiring of a county surveyor that is here full time and can over a, let's say, 5-year period, devise a plan or methodology for how much we can accomplish. I still don't think that's a bad plan. However, we don't know what we don't know. And my argument there is by the end of next year, we'll know a lot more. Because we are working with a company to use one of our townships as a test effectively to say how much work is this really going to be. And we know that for every corner we find, the next subsequent corner is a little bit easier, and there's compounding results and benefits from doing that. So starting where we are is a good plan, and maybe probably one of the townships we have the most discovered data or section corners for as well. We also have the reality that across our 12 townships, we would never hire to find literally every section corner because it doesn't make sense to do so. You would focus on ones that are going to be developed or developable areas, or our 10-year road plan that overlays that logic. If we're not going to try to find a section corner in the middle of a swamp or the middle of a lake or whatever that may be, that really doesn't make sense. So when we think about the full scope of what we're trying to accomplish over the next few years, is there a benefit? Absolutely. Every additional corner, just like every additional corner makes the next corner easier to find, it makes it cheaper for the public individual, the constituent, the private survey work that has to be done. Because it's the largest piece of a private survey process, the largest cost is identifying, digging up that section corner. So if that data already exists, it's at times a quarter to a third of the cost of what it would be for a private person to get a survey done, to call one of these companies and request this information to be done. So with that, I just wanted to turn it back to you for commentary, quick roundtable conversation. Are we comfortable with ending this for 2025 until our PLSS dollars have been expended and we know what the outcome of that project is?
Can we utilize some of that funding that we have on that grant? Let's say, or is it just designated for Will Township?
I believe it is just dedicated for that project area. I think we tried to develop.
So let's say somebody's gonna do a survey up in Little Grove Township. Do we have funding to help them offset and find that corner?
We don't currently, and that's been part of the conversation too. And so it's a good question. I'll use Steele County as an example. They don't do this piece of a Steele County budget's a conservative $35,000 a year to go towards this conversation, but not necessarily exactly this. But there are counties that have a rebate program, I'll call it, where we have a benefit, overall the county benefits and everyone benefits from each subsequent section corner that is found. So if you as a private owner have to get a survey for whatever reason, that survey results in that section corner being identified and documented and recorded, that certificate being recorded in the county recorder's office, there's a $1,000 rebate that goes back to you as the private owner or individual. That is an option. And I'm not saying it's a bad option, it would just be new.
I'm just thinking over the next year, if we have some people that start to do surveys,
Yeah.
hey, we do that to find a corner, we'll help you out here a little bit.
So we do something, sorry, Commissioner Malter, just to add on that, we do something similar with wells. Wells healing, same kind of concept. We see it as a public benefit for there not to be open holes in the ground that contaminate water supply. So it's similar to where, this has a pretty specific and clear public purpose for us to incentivize the completion of it. And ultimately, that's exactly what the argument for hiring a county surveyor would be. So it's possibly helping to accomplish the same task.
I am anxious that we have a plan going forward to make surveys more reasonably cost effective for our folks. Because everybody is reluctant to do a survey when they really need to do a survey. Good surveys make good neighbors. We know that. It helps our internal departments. And I'm anxious to do that, but I am equally anxious to make sure our internal mechanisms, including someone new working on GIS, and that coordination between departments is well thought out and strong before we throw a whole bunch of money at it, because otherwise what happens is we do this work and it doesn't end up being in our system in a usable way. It doesn't do any good if we find corners and they don't end up in our GIS system, recorded in our recorder's office so that they are usable. And we'll give away a lot of opportunities to do that if we don't have that inside coordination. And I think we've probably, lack of coordination is always a challenge in all counties. And particularly small counties where there's not a lot of capacity. I don't necessarily have a problem having this discussion over the next year, continuing to support this grant work, and then making sure we've got the pieces in place so that we can, so that we don't lose the information that we have access to. I don't know, and part of me goes, is there another way to do this? I've had surveys done, is there a way that we can mine data from some of our citizens who might be willing to take $1,000 off a survey they did 3 years ago that identifies a section corner for us? I don't know the legality of all that. I'm just churning.
So part of the legality piece, it is a statutory requirement for a survey company to record a certificate if a section corner is identified. Has it always happened in the past? Almost certainly not. But is there more data out there than we currently have documentation for? Yes.
At the recorder's office, you think?
Yes. And that would certainly be part of this overall conversation. Could that be worked on by the GIS coordinator? Absolutely. And frankly, there is a couple of years worth of work that can be done by a GIS coordinator outside of this conversation, but certainly could entail this conversation too. But yes, almost certainly there is, I'll even say certificates that are existing in the recorder's office or that may be recorded as part of some other function or building project or permit or whatever individual data that's been completed that just haven't made it to us or made it into this conversation. So data gathering, data mining is going to be part of it. And I obviously don't know what that number is or how many, but undoubtedly, I have no doubts whatsoever that there are section corners that have been found that we have not identified from a mapping standpoint already.
Ms. Tam?
We do have quite a collection in that office as well, with Robin has a private little stash. When someone splits and gets a survey, they share a copy with her.
Cool.
And they don't record it, but I'm quite certain she keeps all of those, so.
Nice.
Between the two offices, I think there's a fair amount.
Yeah.
And
Sorry.
oh, that's
Commissioner Drowsy.
Well, I thank you for everybody's comments. I guess I really wanted to push this along because I've seen the value savings. Just a little bit that's been done will go by, and in front of the constituents. So, but now I'm hearing from everybody that's saying and talking to John Smith and Steve Thompson and and other surveyors that, you know, maybe we need to go back and take a year to really look at this. Not that I'm ever gonna give it up. But we'll keep pushing it pretty hard because I've just seen the benefit to the constituents.
Definitely.
You know, when you talk about Freeborn County at $1,500 to do a survey and they come up to Waseca County and it's 35 or $5,000, you know, and that was just the words from Steve Thompson. It's like, now they might be going to Wilton Township and going, oh, down there, it only cost us 1,000 and St. Mary's or Alton, and then it's that much more. So I really want to keep on pushing it. But if we're -2, you know, the GIS position or another position that we gotta find a base to start. And where that starting point is going to, how do we fill those blanks in so we don't have a surveyor coming in or somebody doing it? And then where is he supposed to go? Where are they supposed to take that information?
Yeah, so part of why I can't come to you in good conscience and say we need to hire a county surveyor is because I don't have a lot of confidence in exactly where we are in our GIS data. So until I know that or can have someone convey that to me that knows that, it's hard to recommend that we need to solve a problem that I don't know exists as of yet.
I think the subcommittee talked about, and I know even with Commissioner Krause, he's still implementing a dollar amount, whatever that may be, possibly greater than what Steele County is doing at this point. And I would want, depending on how that verbiage is, we would want it to state that that money would be available for someone that is actively looking for that point. You know, so that it's not just something that we're gonna say, well, we know what we're doing in Wilton, we're gonna move into Woodville or wherever, we're gonna find this. I would want it to be not open, say, to the public, where then everybody goes, well, I'm looking, you know, and that's gone in, you know, 5 minutes. So however we do that, I would want the public to be able to have access to some of that money.
For sure. And so I'll say that solution is relatively simple to implement. And we've talked through that, myself and staff have talked through that. And easy enough to convey that any data maybe that contributes to the finding of a recorded section corner or going back to that private individual, if it costs you $5,000, and it may in Waseca County, but if that cost ended up resulting in a certified and recorded section corner, then you're going to get that $1,000 back. So it's helpful for people to know that at the onset.
Yeah.
And we can advertise it as such. And as you'll see in a little bit, I have $66,218 currently available to use for this intended purpose, or a portion of that.
This just seems like the situation, like you go back to our ditch, which is, you know, we're so far behind. You know, now we've figured out, oh, we're really behind on these section corners, corners. And you talk about land and water resources. A surveyor can also get into these ditch systems and take these positions where the county, in county tile, you know, where they are, how big they are, what their positions are. So in the future, if that was mapped out, it would take less time for land and water resources. They could do just have a map. Well, on that map, it would say this is what the flow is, and that would also be recorded. So it's further down the road, but it's always a possibility. And I could see it landing anywhere, you know, assessor's office, highway, or land and water. Those are the three main positions, but yeah. Like to keep the conversation going for sure, and possibly if it works out just fine, to have money set aside for maybe actively constituent looking for those section corners.
Thank you for that. I just want to, again, touch base quickly on where we're at with the current budget conversation. As you're aware, the board approved a preliminary levy that was a 1.5% increase over 2024. And I'm just going to talk, I'll kind of zoom in and go a section at a time so you can actually read what's. So all this does is captures the 2025 preliminary, and then as of yesterday, I updated this again yesterday, what changes have there been since that preliminary? So we know, first of all, we know the levy is going to increase, can't increase, could go down, not up. But will there be shifts between that still arrive at the same conclusion? Yes. The major contributing factors to this that we talked about at the approval of the preliminary was health insurance and ongoing union negotiations. So we knew that there was going to be incremental changes. This isn't a surprising thing, but it still behooves us to go through and just kind of take a peek at what's happening. So you're going to see very, very, very small changes at all of these department levels because of those final insurance numbers and things that come through. So it isn't significant, but it's, you know, still subtle changes here and there between then and now. We had and why, so we'll think of the couple of you that are on the labor committee, thinking about how those union negotiations have occurred, what we've come to tentative agreements on to date. Maybe in your mind, you're thinking, okay, that number should be larger. Well, reminding us that we already had an assumed negotiation calculated into the preliminary levy that we ended up being quite close to on a couple of those contracts thus far. So very, very minor changes at the individual department levels go through. We're going through the appropriations. We will get a separate list of that. The $5,000 change is the additional green scene conversation we've had recently, and Sam Ziegler presented it a month and a half ago. That's at this point. But apart from that, pretty minute changes. The building fund, I pulled out a $40,000 placeholder that was in there for the repair and replacement of the lower level steps of the courthouse that I had mentioned to you before, moving up into 2024. It's actually supposed to start this week. It'll happen yet or not, but it's supposed to be starting this week and done by the end of the year. So it'll be one staircase at a time. Obviously, we won't remove both staircases. That wouldn't be very smart. So we'll have that company hopefully mobilized in the next week. Nothing major at all happening in the public works side of things. So back up, really additional conversations on the human services side of things, apart from what we talked about before, that reimbursement that came back to the county, a portion of which is included in here. Nothing significant happening. Solid waste. That $750,000 placeholder still for initial conversations that will kick off in the next couple of weeks as well. As anticipated, nothing changing from the ditch assessment side of things. So where is that? Here, this number right here is that 1.5% increase. The additions from all of those levy conversations, or not levy conversations, union conversations, negotiations, health insurance, are additional $67,000. that takes us into kind of the interest conversation as well too, and what those prospective buy downs are or could be. So as we meander through that conversation, the request I had was, okay, what are some of those capital items that we have in 2025? I want to relook at those and have future conversations on those. So these are all items that exist but are being offset by additional interest dollars or reserve dollars. So they are in the budget program. They are not levied for. This may be a different way to say that. So they still show up in the overall budget number. They do not show up in the levy number. So just, picking on actual dollars in our munis system as of yesterday, that's what we are looking at in terms of interest earns. I anticipate that to escalate up to 1.5 throughout the remainder of this year, perhaps a couple dollars more. But what are we buying ahead or offsetting for non-levy implications? And that's the list ultimately. The anomalies, perhaps, we have had conversations at the Public Works Subcommittee through the preliminary stages of the budget setting process, working with the Jim at Public Works. We had him essentially zero out his equipment fund for some additional levy relief. This is just an idea to further supplement or replace what we had him buy down. We know that's a significant cost every single year. So it is valid, I would say, at a minimum to look at replenishing up to $150,000 into that account. Industry standard is about 10% of your total assetized cost every single year, and that number exceeds $700,000. So we haven't been doing that, but if we were going to do what that industry standard would say, it is obviously still significantly more than that 150,000. This is not moving, but I put it back in here for conversation because we know it's going to happen eventually. It does not have to happen right now, but we know if anything maintenance oriented happens with those HVAC systems and sensors, we're going to replace and not fix. Brian gave more representation and presentation for what the need is, the business need is. It's one of comfort and convenience, I'll state, but is there some efficiency argument? Yes, there is. I mean, our second and third floors are constantly competing against each other, and when one decides it gets too warm or too cold, it needs to heat or cool the other one up. So it has just been a back and forth, and there's no way to organically fix that other than to fix it. So that was an ask originally, was in the original budget program. I pulled it back out, said, okay, let's talk about this later. That's now. In terms of how do we potentially do this without inflating a levy standard, and that's what this would look like. The other conversation is covering of Fund 11 projects for 2025, and those are over here. As I don't remember if I took it out, I did. There it is. The new stairs were in that program for 2025. As I mentioned, we looked those ahead. So that was the $40,000 I mentioned earlier that I pulled out of the 2025 program. As we're escalating it, moving it ahead, it's up there. So in the context of this conversation, that one's already gone. So the additional 133 is looking to address these items. And part of that 66,000 I mentioned a few minutes ago, as far as what could be a seedling for the monetization conversation, is factoring in removing this from the overall levy conversation. Go back a page. See, it's still there. So that 133,000 is still contributing to this overall levy number as it exists in the program. we know that this number can't happen, it won't happen. This is the highest that number is going to be. So that 66,962 is going to be offset one way or the other through some of the interest conversations I'm having with you right now. If it is this full project cost, I'm always okay with budgeting capital projects with interest dollars, reserve dollars, because they're typically one time and a long time expenditures. We don't do that with ongoing programs wherever possible because it's kind of a house of cards. But when there are conversations like this, totally comfortable as any of these would be in this context. So we do that, just by means of example, let's say we zero this out. And you now free up that $66,218 to begin to utilize that monumentization conversation as well too. So that's where that money came from that I mentioned a minute ago. Let's pause there. That was a lot. Questions so far?
Appropriations, is an Richland ambulance and
Question. I have noted. There's a believe it is not. Oh, can't see that. Can't see that. Yep, so that was another item on that agenda list, as you can see, that we're going to move to is appropriations. That was one we had a previous conversation about too, that is going to bring up. So obviously there's plenty of opportunity and room to correct that. We did get some conversation back from the city of New Richland for specifically what those funds could be used for. It was mostly dispelling the notion of we didn't really have an accounting for where those dollars go. Are they getting absorbed in the general fund? That doesn't appear to be the case. So we do have that narrative from the ambulance director for how those funds are used.
yeah, and I hope that there's some work going on in amongst their organization. So that ambulance person can keep better track of what she has for a balance.
Sure.
I think the money has been going to the general fund, but they've had a ledger of, okay, this is ambulance money, so
Right.
there's not a lot of good transparency between the two. Hopefully that's being worked on. But yeah, I kind of think that probably should go back in there.
Okay. Easily done.
My other, well, I'm sorry, the sheriff's budget, there was a bigger amount of change on that one.
On this sheet,
Yeah, I thought there was $100,000, 80,000, maybe county sheriff's office down there in the green.
okay. Should have the corner. Let's have the corner in here, but that should have been in both. Let me check. What would have changed in that one from then now? I have to assume it's positionally related, but we can find out for you for sure.
And then my last one is Min Prairie space lease. We've had some conversation, but I know you've got kind of a formula you use to come up with that, but it's giving me a fairly large discrepancy between the other counties and us. And they stayed stagnant for 25 and we went up 6% or something like that. I'm just wondering if there's something we can do there to stay more in line or where that's at.
Sure. This is, and I can go, let me try to find that while I'm talking here too. This is a process that I inherited that could use some revisement, but if we go back to 2019 going into 2020 with the acquisition of the community services building, the conversation with them at that point in time, as it's been communicated to me a couple of times, is that Mid Prairie was contributing to offset some of those bond dollars that were issued for the acquisition and model of that space. So there's two different series issuances that are part of that conversation. But then there are the formula that was derived was for all the other aspects of the building, the utility aspects, the cleaning aspects, things like that. So I send them a breakdown of what that looks like every year. And we are already, last year, we are already reducing it. Let me pull this up for now, since it at least alludes to what we're doing. So part of the conversations I've had with Dodge and Steel in the past is, what are you effectively charging on a square foot basis? So if we were to let this thing just calculate, it would be significantly more than it is. But I'm capping it at $14 a square foot, essentially, is how this is working. So
Capping it at what?
$14 a square foot. The amount that they're leasing. A couple of years ago, I took out the vast majority of what was being charged back to them for basement storage as well, just because they weren't effectively utilizing it. So I talked to them, Jane, at that point in time, like, okay, what are you actually using? And it was just that one room that they were sharing with public health for storage. So I just reduced that. That was at 4,000 square feet. I reduced that down to 500 square feet. So the original, in 2020, I'll say that 16,000 was the total square feet that they were leasing.
Yeah.
So that's now 12,500. So we have made a couple of reductions already.
Why, 12,000?
12,500 square feet.
Times 14.
Yes, so that's on the bond side of things right here. So let's just walk through this for a second.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. So per that conversation, if they had effectively 50% of the bond costs, which is what the communication was, they have half the building, public health has half the building. So they were on the hook, say, for 50% of those indenture costs. Okay, that's the piece we're pulling back and restricting to the $14 a square foot. After that, I give them these other factors to consider every year, like what's contributing to this. So that's just a piece of it. That's the rent piece of it. Then there's the maintenance piece that we break down. Here's what it actually costs for the insurance. Here's what it actually costs for the cleaning services themselves. Here are the actual dollars that we budget in our budget for the utilities, and then split it all 50-50 again. So we take what we actually budget in our budget and plug those back in here and divide it in half. And that's how it has always been done. So I believe steel at this point might be closer to $11 to $12 a square foot, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well,
Okay. So could we make that argument? Sure, absolutely. It's just go ahead.
I don't know that they're charging maintenance on top of that. I
They
divided it out last night.
They probably aren't, because they're actually leasing it as just a space. The conversation that happened here, and you can correct me, this was before me, but the conversation that happened here, as I understood it, was that they were partnering in that acquisition cost, which was the bond. So there's two different factors happening. It's just the cost of the bond for us to actually be here, and then there's the cost of maintaining it for us to stay here.
Yeah, and I know we've had these conversations before and is anything like that on, is that just talk to you, it's not on paper? These conversations,
This methodology, no, we have it codified in a lease agreement every single year that the board approves in December.
yeah.
But this methodology, there was never anything instructed or documented about it. I've had conversations with Jane in the past too, and she affirmed that this was the process, but
So that 6% increase this year was due to the maintenance costs?
predominantly, but I can, find what I sent to Kevin.
I guess the part I struggle with the using the bond, paying half the bond is that, if that bond's paid off, then do we take that, is that their building? Is that their half of the building, we pay, if they're paying for half of it? Once that bond is gone, we're still gonna charge them rent, it's still our building. So I struggle with using that as,
Here's one reason I don't as much. I think some of that cost is offset by the fact that they moved into a furnished building. Because we had this discussion now when Steele wanted to replace those cubicles, and who pays for that? Min Prairie or Steele County? Well, Min Prairie does. Part of that cost is they moved into a furnished building, brand new cubes, all of that was done. And that furniture, those furnishings are Min Prairie's now. So that's, at least my understanding of the situation, that's part of the yin and yang is, and that's why when it came time to change those cubes over at Steele, it's like, yep, that's a cost all of the members bear here because Min Prairie is this formula, which will change when the bond comes off. That's part of the cost of getting that newly refurnished with them owning the furnishings.
so we furnished it and now they're Min Prairie's.
Yes.
So we gave them the furnishings when they moved in. That's the way it was in Steele County also.
Well, essentially, they got charged for. It
They're
depends on how you look.
Or they're getting charged.
Correct.
paying overtime. Yeah. That's part of the difference there. At least that's my understanding.
Yeah, it's just, it gets to be a little uncomfortable at board meetings now today. When we are 30,000 higher than.
I think that's part of that conversation because those furnishing costs, all of that whole place had brand new furnishings.
So this is the 2025 one. That amount didn't change, again, capped at the $14 a square foot, so that did not increase. The increases were maintenance and utilities and fees that were the other side of that. And that, yeah, part of the increases we still had under contract a cleaning service at the beginning of, towards the end of 2023, when this was being implemented, that changed. So the cost did increase, but the service dramatically increased. So that's just to clarify some of we had a contract for a commercial cleaning service for a commercial cleaning service. We do have 2 part-time janitorial staff that cover the entirety of the county at this point. So that part of that factors in here too, in terms of what budget they're contributing to that building space as a whole. So I'm not beholden to this document by any means, whatever the board thinks is gonna be most comfortable going forward. This has just been the prescriptive process since Main Prairie moved into that space. And we've made two significant changes since that started. One, capping the per square foot cost on the bond, and two, reducing the square feet. It's like 3,500.
Well, I think it's just in our conversation at Joint Powers Board, we have to be sure that the other counties. And I know we've had these conversations when we were going through this cubicle replacement. But I'm not sure if
Yeah, we understand.
I have a clear understanding of Dodge, Steel and us as far as the furnishings. So then that would make a little more sense as to why ours would be higher. We're still paying off those
About all the machines.
furnishings. So we just spent 200,000 in
We
steel, 18 in steel replacing cubicles. If you can imagine cubicles costing that, but it did. And so there is an obvious significance to having new cubicles versus 500-year-old.
Question. And time to make changes still, if we want to have a follow-up conversation, or very folks and myself certainly can do that. Right size. That size seems to indicate that it's wrong in some way. I don't think it's wrong. But comparatively across the other two counties, knowing that there's two other counties that have other processes that they follow to.
Those leases are on our agenda for today.
Yeah.
So that's probably a conversation for tonight.
Were there any other questions on appropriations? I'm gonna make sure we jump past those. I have a placeholder for an emergency ambulance. Last thing I want to talk about just for a couple of minutes, and why Mr. Shiro joined us. We have been chatting about temporary real estate acquisition, and this would simply and solely be with probation services in mind. Or services, probation, we have like 4 different names for the department now. However you want to refer to John, staff. The board has heard some machinations of moving to a community corrections model. You'll hear more on that on December 3rd, and go through some of maybe the relative industry pros and cons, if you will, of what that means and what the implications would be for the county staff, existing staff, and additional staff. And why I say additional staff is because we would inherit a couple of Department of Corrections staff moving from a CPO model to a CCA model. However, you have heard me, even outside of this conversation, you have heard me say many times that I am uncomfortable with the space that court services inhabits. It is not functional. It's not isn't a good way to modify that. Isn't really any way to modify it, frankly. What has been done is about all that can be done in the historic annals of the courthouse, which they kind of inhabit the foundation of the courthouse that we've modified to office spaces. So, okay, what are we talking about here? Temporary, why is it called temporary? I don't have a desire, I don't think I've heard from the board that we have a desire to expand our footprint. From a county standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint, we would love to be able to get back to one campus model. I think that's the goal. And why then I call it temporary is anything that the county would be pursuing, I would make recommendation in pursuing would be with a temporary designation, very much in mind. You can get into more specifics than that. Commissioner Hargith, I don't know how specific you want to get into that conversation or not, or if you want to wait until December 3rd to vet that out some more. I don't have strong feelings one way or the other, I guess. So, okay.
I do not.
So, that to say, we are looking at a specific piece of property right now, a specific office building that would afford these needs and would be, what I would say a stopgap measure for a couple of years until the county was able to pursue additional conversations of a judicial building being constructed, which would house all of our judicial folks and judicial functions in one safe, secure space. We know that takes time. So it does then inhibit our ability to most effectively migrate to a CCA model in that interim period. Could it be done? Yes. I think John would and will say it could be done with a hybrid approach that would entail some remote work for staff on a scheduled basis. There may be some concerns there with 18 months, 24 months after the fact saying, okay, now we all have to come back in-house and this is where we're at now. That's challenging, especially if there's any turnover or if you're hiring someone into that role or expectation and then changing. It could happen though, so I just want to be clear about that. We could figure out a way to make it work if we had to in the existing space. I just not comfortable with that approach, but okay. That being said, I again want to make it clear that whether it's the current building we're in or any other buildings, the desire is to get everything consolidated across the street in the courthouse campus in that one half a block area. And that's the future that I foresee in my crystal ball. So I wanted to at least do a quick gut checking with you folks and see where your mind goes, what immediate concerns you may have, or at least plant the seed for those concerns to grow between now and December 3rd. For some additional questions as John makes a bit more clear conversation and picture to say, here are the scope and services, yes, but here's actually like the budget implications as we could best derive today, both where the legislature is today or the funding formula is today. Here's what CPO versus CCA looks like in a vacuum right now if we were to make that switch in 2025. Community correction here. So biggest change, I guess, this is not doing it due diligence, but bringing on that felony caseload, right?
That is correct.
CCA, excuse me.
It seems to me for a couple different reasons that that the move from CPO to CCA makes a lot of sense, partly because of the change from the state and the funding formula. That's significant. I think it also makes better sense as we serve folks who are in our judicial, who are going through our judicial processes. This is a more robust model that I think gives us better overall oversight, as opposed to, you take this, we'll take this. Nope, we've got it all here. We've got our eye on the ball for everybody involved in this. And I don't have reservations about a temporary acquisition if this gets us where we need to be. I share your concern about the space in our basement. It's just, it's tough. It's tough.
For nice storage.
Is there still want to touch on E or kind of went into that a little bit?
I think I covered most of that already. If anybody has any other questions, we can, but it was really just to tie it back to the budget and dispel any fear mongering that we may have in our minds after the last conversation. I feel really good about where the conversations are today. And hopefully the labor committee does too, but I appreciate their insight into the process. I still have a couple more contracts and groups to work with, of course, but positive conversations so far. And you have that on your board agenda for today too, for two of those groups that we've come to tentative agreements on already. So I'm I'm pleased with where the conversations have gone. So I'm happy to be talking about 3-year contracts.
Thanks, Michael. Any other questions or comments on the work session? Turn 9:25. Thank you.
Sue will be back in a couple of minutes.
Sure. Connect with her.
Suzie, can you hear me okay?
Morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, all commissioners. Right.
Okay.
Morning.
How are you?
How are you? I'm fine. How are you?
Suzie?
Maybe that's better. Susie, can you hear me at all?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Hi,
Hi, good morning.
morning. We will be back in just a couple of minutes as we kick off our main meeting, okay?
That's just fine. And is my audio okay?
Yes,
comes-
you're coming through just fine.
Oh, that's great. Thanks so much. See you
Yep.
soon.
Got it.
All right, welcome everyone, 9:31, please silence your cell phones and questions. Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Thank you for coming to the Waseca County Board meeting,
Thursday.
November 19th. First up, we have recognition. For dispatcher Bob.
Well, good morning, everyone, commissioners, county administrator, Beth, the public. This morning, we just want to recognize, one of our own, dispatcher, Bob Kubat. Public safety, we cannot do our jobs alone. In emergency situations, we definitely cannot do it alone. So we always need the support of our commissioners, our community, and our family, and our coworkers. So you want there as well? So here in early October, we had a emergency situation near Janesville, and we want to recognize in cooperation with the Sheriff's Office, Janesville Fire Department, and South Central EMS. We are here to recognize Dispatcher Kubat was working that day. So this award comes from all of us, and the South Central EMS regional system. They provide continuing education, medical direction, critical incident services, and fire rehab support to ambulance, fire, and law enforcement agencies in the surrounding counties, including Waseca. So, Mr. Kubat, this award that we are going to recognize you for is from South Central EMS and Sheriff's Office and Emergency Services. On the morning of October 4th, 2024, a school bus driver for Janesville, Waldorf, Pemberton schools suffered a medical emergency while bringing children to school. One of the passengers, Kaylee Elliott, noticed the bus was slowing down unexpectedly and quickly realized that the driver was in distress. Kaylee quickly called 911 and safely stopped the bus. Waseca County Dispatcher Bob Kubat was the operator who answered Kaylee's call and quickly realized that he would have to achieve 4 things: keep Kaylee calm, find out the nature of the emergency, get appropriate emergency resources on their way, and ensure other 911 calls were handled as he was the only dispatcher on duty. The decisive action taken by Kaylee and the calming presence and professionalism of Dispatcher Kubat prevented this emergency from becoming a disaster and laid the groundwork for quick access to definite medical care. The courage both of these individuals demonstrated during this emergency is commendable and deeply appreciated by emergency professionals and the community. So on behalf of Dr. Mike Wilcox, South Central EMS, Janesville Fire, Palmer Bus Service, and the Waseca Sheriff's Office, we congratulate you on the job well done. Also present today is Tim Engel to our right with represents Palmer Bus Company. So I'm going to present you with this award for your job that you did that morning. Chief Deputy Doug Gertz also has a pen for you to go along with the certificate. So I just also want to recognize Bob's supportive family is here in the audience as well. So, tell me, come here. Sheriff's Office for years. 26 years ago. If you want to give anything, you certainly can. So I'm good.
I watched the video and I was impressed with what Kaylee did, so. Very cool.
Good for her.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. Is anyone here for public comment? Anyone for public comment? Anyone for public comment? All right, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Commissioner Krause, anything to add? No, there, Mr. Chair. Rachel?
Nothing, thank you.
Dr. Milburn? One second. Mr. Christopherson? No, sir, no chair. Senator Malton? Michael?
No, sir.
Beth?
No.
All right, with nothing to add or delete, I would look for a motion to approve. Motion. So a motion is our second. Second. Motion by Commissioner Milbreast, second by Commissioner Krause. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye? Any opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next, our presentations, the Southern Minnesota Passenger Railroad. Sue Nakajian is virtual and Roy here first. Yeah, please. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
To the public. Morning, commissioners, county administrator. Good to be here. Thank you for having me. The reason I'm here today is the railroad. Most of you know me. I came here in 1986 to bring the railroad here, the railroad that was currently going through southern Minnesota. The Chicago Northwestern was being abandoned, and a group of us came up here from Iowa to purchase the DME, purchase what became the DME Railroad and continue rail service through southern Minnesota. And I worked for the railroads for 42 years. And again, it was my passion. And next to my family, probably, well, and my faith, probably my greatest passion. And then along came politics. I became a council member in the city of Waseca in 1992, and it was over a railroad issue. Former mayor and council member John Clemens, may he rest in peace, and I ran into each other in a filling station, and we just both waited for trains at the crossing, and we were talking about how someone should do something about this problem in the city of Waseca, and I told him I worked for the railroad. And we talked a little bit. He said, maybe you should run for city council. And I did. And I spent 32 years as a public servant, which I truly enjoyed as well. And that brings me to why I'm here today. In the year 2000 thereabouts, the DME Railroad was in the process of bringing continuous welded rail, no jointed rail, no clickety click. We were going to bring it all the way across the across southern Minnesota. Kevin Sheeper and I, the president of the railroad at the time, went through South Dakota. The DME, as many of you know, runs from the Black Hills to the Mississippi River. And the idea was to form community partnership agreements with all of the communities and all of the counties on the railroad line. And we spent a great deal of time doing that. The only city that we couldn't convince, we convinced all the counties, all the cities except Rochester, which brings me to today. This is passenger rail that we're talking about now, and the city of Rochester, who wouldn't sign on for freight rail or continuous welded rail, is now enamored with passenger rail service, and so that is a bonus for all of us. And again, that's what brings me here. The state regional railroad plan. We have a map, and I'll introduce Susie in just a minute. But it was approved in 2015 to bring passenger rail service to the area, the region. And there were a couple corridors that were involved, and Susie will get into deeper detail with those. But the corridor I'm most interested in is the former DME line, now CP, which would be in a position to take students to all of the regional educational facilities in our area. If I'm not mistaken, and Susie can correct me if I'm wrong,
there's potential for 400,000 students to be able to ride rail in various points in the region to the state schools, the University of Minnesota, and it's quite exciting. And this is quite a project. And again, Susie will get into greater detail, but we've been already out soliciting cities. And you are the first county I've participated with, Waseca County, to sign on with a letter of support. And not really at this time anything more than that, just a letter of support from the board that you are behind this project. And we would certainly appreciate if that could happen. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Susie Nakajian, who has all of the details, and she is virtual. And it's good to see her. I always enjoy it. She is a former council member in Northfield, and her passion, I like to think I have more passion about the railroad than anyone else, but her passion is equal to mine. She's very excited about this, and you will be very excited to hear her and get to know her. All right, Susie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Roy. And thank you, Chairman Milbreath, for inviting me to participate today. I'm Susie Nakajian. I served 3 terms on the Northfield City Council. And while there, was alarmed that although Northfield is right on the edge of the 7-county metro, we had no regional transit option. So 55% of my population in Northfield would commute daily on I-35, and we joked that we all meet for coffee at I-35 and 94 because of the traffic congestion is so bad. So we began to look at what are the possibilities of regional transit. We were also concerned that we were missing out on employers that were looking for places to settle. And the #1 criteria for those potential companies was regional transportation. I think good beer and good coffee often came onto the list as well, but Northfield has some of that. So in 2015, I worked to mobilize support from the cities on the Twin Cities Albert Lea corridor. All of these conversations are about existing rail. It's not high-speed rail, it's not light rail, it's existing freight rail infrastructure, and we'd be re-adding passenger service to those existing lines. Well, Northfield has the Union Pacific line, which connects the Twin Cities to Kansas City and even as far as San Antonio, Texas. And it just seemed to make sense to us that rather than having everybody get in their cars every day, what would be the possibility of adding passenger rail? And we mobilized a conversation of elected leaders on that corridor, and it was unanimous in support. Yes, let's see what's possible here. So in 2015, we were moved into the state rail plan, and you'll see in the maps that are in your packet there, the 2015 map, which shows all of the phase 1 corridors designed by MnDOT. Clockwise, you'll know the NLX project, Duluth to the Twin Cities, that's well underway. Eau Claire Twin Cities is a collaboration between the Wisconsin DOT and MnDOT. The second train to Chicago, which goes down to Winona and La Crosse, you may know is inaugurated in May, I think it was, and has already surpassed ridership expectations. So looking at that map, you'll see there were 3 corridors, the Mankato Twin City, and now I'm going west to east. Mankato to the Twin Cities has been on the map since 2010. Then our corridor, the Albert Lea corridor, was added in 2015. The map also shows a proposed high-speed rail project, but that since the publishing of this map, MnDOT has called that project tabled indefinitely, which means it's not going to happen. It's the only project that did not involve existing rail infrastructure, and the price tag on it was ridiculously high and problematic for the farmers whose land that, anyway, that's a whole long story, but that is no longer viable. So looking at that map, the state rail plan, and really this is our request today, The state rail plan by statute is updated every 10 years. And including it on this map as a designated passenger rail corridor is necessary to identify a line for potential investment at the state and federal level. So, and that's for the next decade, 2025 to 2035. So I kind of think of it as a game board. The very first step toward keeping our options open in southern Minnesota is to make sure that the Mankato and Twin Cities and the Albert Lea Twin Cities corridors continue to be designated for passenger rail. So it's all it's doing is just preserving that option. We don't yet know what the political landscape will look like under the new federal administration. There was $66 billion in the Biden administration, which is funding projects like these. There are 70 projects underway now in other states. Nobody knows now what will happen at the federal level. But in order to prepare for whatever will be the case at the federal level in the state, we need to make sure that southern Minnesota is designated for passenger rail, or we simply will be left off the map of any development that does happen. Looking at this 2015 map when it was published, I think most of us in southern Minnesota said, what's missing here? And the answer in our minds was, well, why would you have 3 corridors connecting north-south and not connect them east and west using the existing DM&E line, which not only connects Waseca, it would connect all of southern Minnesota potentially to Rochester Mayo Clinic, which is very important to many of us for health reasons, if not employment. And continue over to Winona, where of course you have the existing interstate passenger rail service already. So our request today to Waseca County and also to other cities in southern Minnesota that I'm reaching out to is to sign on to a joint letter to MnDOT in support of the continued passenger rail designation of the Mankato and Twin Cities corridors, which you'll see are already designated, and then add a new passenger rail designation to make that east-west CP line eligible for passenger rail development. It simply adds our region, makes us eligible for funding. In the coming fiscal year, we can then, if we get into the plan, see what the project would be more specifically, where would it stop, what kind of frequency of service, all those details. But right now, we're just trying to make sure we are eligible for study. And when I think about this project, you know, again, I came to this from Northfield, but thinking about it for southern Minnesota, the two things one, you have a Min State University in Mankato, which could be connected to by the whole network of the state, and also the interstate passenger rail in Winona, were we to return passenger trains to these lines. The other thing is you have the most beautiful tourism, I think, in the state. And right now, those trains coming from Chicago tend to go on to Twin Cities. This would open the possibility of greater tourism, people getting off at Winona and enjoying Lanesboro and Austin and Albert Lea and the beautiful communities of southern, and Waseca, the communities of southern Minnesota. So that is our request for today, is to ask for the county's endorsement. I will say all of the cities on the Albert Lea line have signed on, including Rice County and Steele County. We're still waiting for the letters to come in. And on that Mankato, I have North Mankato, Belle Plaine, St. Peter, and St. Paul, which makes me think we should call it the Twin Saints line. They both signed on, and we're still waiting to hear from the communities, but there's no financial commitment involved here. It's just simply to preserve the option of future exploration. So that's our ask. That's an awful lot of information. So, Mr. Chair, maybe I'll ask if there are any questions.
Any questions for Sue?
Is there research or on the resource efficiency of rail versus road travel?
You know, and
There-
how many people do you have to transport on these lines to make it efficient?
There is plenty of research about passenger rail efficiency. Once, I'm not the expert of that data, but I will say when they study these lines, they wouldn't go forward in funding a line unless it's viable in terms of demographic, the density. When you're talking about adding passenger to an existing rail line, the density required to make that viable is far less, of course, because there's no cost of right of way or the lines. They're already on the ground. So I will be gathering more data from the transportation department about, as I mentioned, there are 70 regional projects underway around the country. So data is starting, a lot of studies have been done. Some corridors were recommended for development and others weren't. But most were, but I don't have those figures at my command in terms of ridership. I will say, because you have a connection to one, if not two, interstate passenger rail corridors, it makes the project all the more viable. And with that, I'll mention, not only do we have the existing rail service to Milwaukee and Chicago, which I just read in the Star Trib the other day, I can't remember the numbers now, but it's way past what they thought it was going to be. But on the Albert Lee line, interesting, that line, that many of you may know, that line ran the most successful long distance line in the network until 1968. It was a train called the Twin Star Rocket, or the Rocket, and it was a Twin Star because it connected the North Star and the Lone Star states. The Amtrak map that's on the packet shows the significance of that line. That's basically it is the Twin Cities Albert Lee line and extended to Des Moines and Kansas City. If the FRA saw it right away, if we add that back into the national Amtrak, there you go, that map. It creates a north-south axis that allows passengers, and that's 5 million tourists a year, by the way, from California and the Southwest, to come into Minnesota from the South, rather than having to go to Chicago, spend the night, wait for a train that's probably late. But nobody does that. Everybody flies. So this really would open reopen a southern gateway into the state from the South. So the FRA has identified that long distance route of one of the preferred routes that they think should be added to the Amtrak network. So it has great promise. That's all we know about it. I don't know what the appetite will be. It could be run by the Union Pacific. It doesn't even have to be an Amtrak train. But again, the national rail picture is uncertain at this point. But potentially, that's a very significant line, as you can tell. I mean, if you were designing a national map, you'd start with a north-south axis and an east-west axis, and Southern Albert Lee and Owatonna are sitting right on that. And they always were, 10 or 12 trains a day on that Twin Star route. So that's two potential interstate lines. And the answer to the question about density is that it means the lines in southern Minnesota would serve not only regional jumps like Mankato to Rochester, Winona to Waseca, but interstate travelers as well, tourists and people coming on longer routes, potentially Kansas City, Albert Lee, that kind of thing. Not every corridor hosts local, in a manner of speaking, local and interstate traffic at the same time. So that bodes well for our the density that we would have, even though we're not as heavily populated an area as perhaps the urban areas on the coasts are. I hope that's as best I can do in answering the question.
No, you did an excellent job. Yes.
Susie, can you cover the safety aspects of the passenger train driving through the no whistle zones?
Oh, thank you. I'm really glad you asked this. One of the beauties about passenger rail development is that it's the secret sauce for quieting trains. The Surface Transportation Board requires a higher level of safety at our rail crossings, our at-grade rail crossings for passenger trains than it does for coal and corn husks. And in Northfield, we have 13 unprotected, well, they're semi-protected at-grade crossings in our downtown commercial district. So we got horns going all time. This is noise now. But the introduction of passenger rail on existing rail lines the government requires an upgrade in the safety of those lines. And as Roy can attest from his experience with the DM&E, the rail line would work with the local municipalities to determine what works synergistically, what works in the interest of the city. Might be closing of rail crossings, it could be upgrades, it could be, the rail project will work with the local authorities to make sure that what we're trying to do is make the rail line safe and make the freight rail run better. Passenger rail needs to stop. Freight trains do not want to stop. So by introducing investment to upgrade for passenger, you make the safety crossings safer. And sometimes you can reduce crossings in many instances, depending on the situation. And then you get rid of the noise, because the double gates obviates the needs for the freight rail, for the train horns to blow. The other thing I'll add is I visited a passenger rail project in Missouri, and I was talking to my sister on the phone when the train came through, and it didn't interrupt my conversation because the new passenger trains that run on these lines are so quiet, you can't hear them. I mean, it's almost a problem, they're so quiet. So that's not a safety issue, but it's an aesthetics issue. They're terrific. I call them whisper trains because they operate so quietly. So rail crossings, were there other safety concerns that you had in mind?
No, I think you covered what I was looking for.
Okay. Other questions?
Thank you very much. I have
Thank you.
one other thing.
Yeah.
I would be remiss if I did not thank Commissioner Milbroth for being involved with this. He appeared at the city council the other night as well. And he's very supportive, and we really appreciate that too. And we welcome the Waseca County folks getting on board. So thank you. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Susie.
Letter of.
I don't know that you need to formally vote, but you can make a recommendation that staff get something drafted for your review.
I'll make that motion.
As a recommendation to get a draft forward. I'll second. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Milbroth and a second by Commissioner Cofferson. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next is South Country Health Alliance, 2024 fall report. Ms. Leota Whitten. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you
Morning.
for the opportunity to appear before you again, provide some updates on South Country.
Isn't working.
Wanted to take some time today
Trying to get it pulled up, Leota, just a second.
to share with you some of the exciting new programs and services that we're making available for our members. And really, the focus of this is really about focusing on living our mission, vision, and values of empowering our members to be as healthy as they can be, building connections with our local agencies and providers who deliver quality service, and being an accountable partner to the families that we serve. We are always continuing to advocate for the health and well-being of people in rural Minnesota, and do this through our values of collaboration, stewardship, communication, and excellence. You have the slides in your packet too.
Yeah.
Just continue that. We're really very excited that in 2025, we have some new supplemental benefits that we'll be able to offer to our members in senior care complete ability care. These are our members who are dually eligible for Medicaid and Medicare. There are most frail elderly and individuals with disabilities. And this year, as you're aware, we have to submit a bid every year to CMS for approval of our next year's contract. And as part of that bid process this year, that one slide, please. As part of this process, they offered a new opportunity for a value-based insurance design. And this new process has really been to test innovations to enhance the quality of care for individuals who are dually eligible for Medicaid and Medicare. It's about person-centered care, and it's about removing obstacles to health and healthcare. In doing this, if we were approved for this value-based insurance design, we're required to offer supplemental benefits that address health-related social needs in 2 of 3 areas, either food, transportation, or the living environment. We submitted our application and it was approved. There were 62 applications for this new value-based insurance design that were approved across the nation. So the benefits of this. Our members, our members will no longer have a co-payment for their Part D drug benefit. So previously they've not had a co-payment for their Medicaid covered drugs. Now they will also not have a co-payment for their Medicare covered drugs. And this is significant. Many of these individuals really are oftentimes making choices about whether or not to pick up their medication and pay the cost of that medication versus being able to pay for their heat, purchase food, all of those types of things. As that requirement to address supplemental benefits addressing health-related social needs, we've added a new supplemental benefit this year. We're calling it our GAP card, a grocery assistance program. And so these members will receive a grocery card that they can use to purchase eligible healthy foods from participating retailers. Those are some of them that are listed. Many of our local grocers, we've provided the vendor with a list of those providers, and we're going to try and see if we can get them approved in the network as well. But for our senior care complete members, they'll receive $130 per quarter. Our members on ability care will receive $210 per quarter in order to purchase groceries. If they don't use it during that quarter, it doesn't carry over, but the first of the next quarter, they will receive, the card will be loaded with a new amount. And in order to make this the least confusion as possible, some of these members may also receive SNAP benefits, and so we've aligned the benefits and the items that they're able to purchase under the GAP program with the foods that they're able to purchase under SNAP, so they don't have to stop and think about which one it would be covered under. We're really excited about this. We know that for many individuals, there's a lot of food insecurity out there, and so being able to provide some additional resources for them is really exciting. We also are continuing our home and safety modification benefit. And with this benefit, members are eligible to receive up to $1,000 a year to purchase safety equipment for their home. So it may be things like grab bars, shower stools, all of those types of things. The goal of this is to try and support members and having safety to be able to continue in their homes living as independently for as long as possible. Previously, this benefit was only available for our seniors that are on Senior Care Complete and will now also be available for our ability care members. Next. In addition, we have our previous supplemental benefits that we have always provided, our Be Active Fit program, This also is one of those supports of local community providers because we contract with the local fitness centers for our members to be able to utilize this benefit. We're continuing our benefit for home delivered meals. These are meals that can be provided for someone after they've been hospitalized, discharged from a nursing facility, those types of things. Oftentimes, because of their illness, they're just not as mobile as they were previously. They have difficulty not be able to get out and get groceries or even just preparing the food. So these meals can be delivered up to 2 times a day for both Senior Care Complete and Ability Care members. The benefit of this one also is many of these members live alone. And so with the home delivered meals, you also have the benefit of there's someone that's stopping in and checking on that member. Being able to lay eyes on them, see how they're doing, and also address some of that social isolation. Members can receive up to 1 dental porcelain crown annually. We have lens upgrades for eyewear for these individuals, and then also access to the personal emergency response system. Again, a huge benefit, particularly for those members that are living independently. So that's for our dual members, our Senior Care Complete and Ability Care members. For our other Medicaid members, we also have had the opportunity to have in lieu of services authorized by the state. So last year was the first time that the state offered this opportunity. And in lieu of services are really designed to be a substitute for services or settings that are already covered under the Medicaid benefit that also help to reduce health disparities or address, again, health-related social needs and reduce costs. Oftentimes, these substitutes or these in lieu of services are less expensive or may just be more effective for the individual. So last year, we had Delphina Care authorized as an in lieu of services. This was a partnership that we entered into with our local public health departments, and it is a program that's really designed to support our pregnant members from the time of identification of pregnancy through 12 months postpartum. It's personalized services for the individual. Every member is offered a doula, and doulas are very effective in providing support and education for individuals throughout pregnancy and postpartum, but we don't have very many of them in Greater Minnesota. This gives our members access to doula services through an app, and it's basically a telehealth doula visit. Each member is assigned a doula, and they can have contact with that doula as frequently as they like. For some members, it may be weekly, for some, it may be once a month, for some, it may be daily if they're experiencing some challenges. Also, through this app and this platform, they have access to telehealth services in the form of registered dietitian, behavioral health services, lactation consultants. They're able to take classes on that offer postpartum support, baby care, managing stress, all of those types of things, as well as just being able to interact with other individuals who are pregnant, postpartum, and building that support network. Our public health nurses have been great in really introducing this app to the members. We actually did an educational session in Steele County about a month ago that was for Dodge Steele Waseca. Our goal was to get 10 members to come to an in-person education training, and we had 19. So we were really excited about that. Also included some of our Spanish speaking and Somali speaking members. So we're going to be doing more of these in some of our other counties in the spring. We decided not to attempt it during the winter months in Minnesota. So we had that one. And this year we submitted a request to also have a new in lieu of service supported or approved. And that was also approved. And we're calling this program our Right Bites for Life. And this is a program to serve individuals who are pre-diabetic or diabetic. It is a 12-month program, so it really starts out with providing prepared meals. that are designed to address the diabetic diet. It progresses over time to meal kits where they can receive all of the ingredients and instructions on how to prepare it and learn that. And then it goes on with ongoing guided support from a nutrition counselor for a year-long process. So it's really designed to help not only initially provide those meals, but over time, help the individual learn how to shop and prepare meals that will improve their health and create lifestyle changes for the individual. The added benefit of having these programs approved as in lieu of services is oftentimes we try to do these types of programs and it's paid for out of administrative dollars. As an approved in lieu of service, we can count these programs now as medical costs, and it is factored in as we go through our rate setting process with the state. Another area where we're really tackling the issues of trying to address some of those access issues that we have, particularly in the area of behavioral health and urgent care services, is by developing a contract with Included Health, which is essentially doctor on demand. We know that there is a great shortage of behavioral health providers across all of the state, but particularly in greater Minnesota. And we're also seeing reduced access to urgent care services. Many hospitals and clinics that previously offered it are no longer offering it. They're no longer offering the extended hours. So for our members, the only access they have to healthcare and evenings, holidays, and weekends is an emergency room. And that's not always the best source of care for individuals that are experiencing more minor health kinds of conditions and concerns. So we've rolled this out in September. For the urgent care, this is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and can treat and provide services for many of those common types of illnesses, ear infections, some of those types of things that otherwise would be going to the emergency room. With the behavioral health, there is a whole host of behavioral health providers. So it again, not only promotes timely access, but this is another area that really helps us address access issues for some of our non-English speaking population because they do have providers available that speak Spanish, speak Somali, and multiple other languages. When we talk about collaboration, we have developed a number of things over the years in partnership with our counties and our community care connector. You've heard us talk about that role. It's extremely important to South Country. It's extremely important to our members. These individuals are boots on the ground in our local communities. They are that access point for our members to receive health and services. We've had this program since our inception, but over this last year, we really wanted to kind of step back and do a refresh and take a look at, is it still meeting our needs? Are there things that we needed to do differently? So we pulled together, next slide, please. We pulled together a group of staff from the counties, directors, supervisors, the connectors themselves, our staff, and we really spent time looking at the program. We updated the position description. We really spent time talking about what some of the challenges were that they were experiencing. And one of the biggest things is they were feeling the nurses and social workers that service the connector were feeling like they just didn't have enough time to really do the individualized contact with members because there had been a lot of administrative kinds of tasks that had come into play. And so we stepped back, we looked at that, we talked about what are the primary things that we really wanted that connector to be able to focus on. And again, it's that they are that local expert, they know the resources in the community, they're the connection point for our members to get them connected to transportation, housing services, food shelters, or food pantries, all of those types of things. They help our members navigate the healthcare system, getting a prior auth if they need a referral, arranging transportation for medical appointments. and really are working with us to raise awareness in the community, not only for our members, but also for our providers and county staff of the benefits and services that are available to our members. So in doing that, we stepped back. Next slide, please. We stepped back and made some changes to how that was being done, and we really asked about how to increase that capacity. And remember, this is a position that's funded by South Country. We really wanted all of our counties to be able to have access to really a full-time connector, but we left it up to our counties as to how that best meets their needs. So across our counties, we're seeing various ways of it being done. For some, they're using a nurse and a social worker. Some are using a nurse, some are using a social worker. But we also gave them the opportunity to add a case aide and fund some of that case aide time. So that full FTE equivalent is being met through all of those combinations. The benefit of that is that the case aide can take on some of those administrative kinds of tasks so that the connector themselves can focus on that individualized contact with the members. So we're really pleased to be able to have made those changes to go in place in 2025. The other program we wanted to step back and kind of do a refresh on was our Healthy Pathways program. Again, this was a program that was developed collaboratively with our counties and with South Country Health Alliance. Back in 2015, we said, what's one of the biggest challenges you have with behavioral health? And the challenge is that while there are services, oftentimes there's a long waiting list for those services. And it takes time to get it done. And they didn't have the opportunity to intervene quickly with these individuals. So they felt that it was really valuable and something that they wanted to continue, but we looked at how we could enhance it. They really developed kind of a statement that the purpose of Healthy Pathways is really to provide that rapid engagement to individuals who are experiencing a potential mental health issue or emotional health issues due to a potential mental health or substance abuse issue. This program is designed for those members who either are not eligible for other types of case management programs available through the county and through Medicaid, which oftentimes an individual has to be very ill and have a very chronic disability to be able to be eligible for that, or you don't know yet that the person is eligible for these programs. So we provide funding and reimburse counties for being able to go out and intervene quickly with these individuals. We've heard from many of our counties that it's resulted in a reduction of law enforcement time, that are getting repeated calls to go out and check on someone, but it also has had additional benefits in really connecting with that member early on, building a relationship with them, getting them in for the assessments that they need, and oftentimes then they are becoming eligible for some of those services and assisting in engagement with that. Our counties are also using this as kind of a step-down service. So when someone's been in targeted case management or has been receiving a higher level of intensity of service, but now has improved, but still needs some ongoing support, they can put in a Healthy Pathways worker to help transition that member down to a lesser level of care. The other piece that we're doing with this, and that will be included in our budgeting process as we go through it this fall, is we're changing the payment arrangement that we've had. Typically, it's been kind of a monthly payment at a standard amount. We've recognized that the level of intensity and work that needs to be done is much heavier in the front end when the person is first engaging versus as they've been on over time. So we're developing kind of a tiered system where there will be a higher reimbursement in the first months of the program, gradually stepping down to kind of a lower maintenance type of payment. The last area that we focus on is our community reinvestment. And I think as we shared with you earlier last year, that over the years, we've reinvested $22 million back into our communities through various programs, grants, services that we've developed. we were very fortunate this year that our board approved, the ability to go out with a round of reinvestment grants this year. We had 4.2 million available. 2.16 of it was going to be used for community organizations and providers to submit proposals. And the other 2.16 is for the counties to be able to use to develop or support programs. We've completed the process for our community organizations and providers. The application deadline was September 30th. At our last board meeting, the committee that reviewed all of the proposals, and we received 35 applications and requests for funding of 7.9 million. So we knew we were not going to be able to fund them all. But we had a great team that came together, reviewed all of the proposals, made recommendations, and at our board meeting last month, 15 programs were approved for that total funding of 2.16 million. In Waseca County, we had, I believe it was 7. Let me get back up my notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 different community organizations. Many of these serve kind of Dodge Steel, Waseca, all combined, but a total of almost $750,000 to these various programs that serve Waseca County residents. Let's Smile, Community Pathways, Health Finders, NAMI Minnesota, Oak Hill Community Connections, and Rachel's Light. And we'll be providing more information on these at a later date, but really excited about the opportunity to do this. And we'll be bringing the county proposals to our board at our December meeting. And we've seen some really great programs from the counties as well. Lastly, we just wanted to take this opportunity to recognize the tremendous amount of work that your income maintenance workers, as well as your care coordinators, case managers did throughout the unwinding of the public health emergency. Every single member had to go basically go through that redetermination process for their eligibility. And this was a much heavier lift than I think many people thought it was going to be. Your income maintenance workers stepped up to the plate, processing all of these applications, doing outreach, the care coordinators, case managers, really trying to connect with members to ensure that that paperwork got completed, got turned in. So we didn't have members who were eligible, continued to be eligible for programs and services, be dropped from the programs and have that gap in their health care. They did a tremendous job, and we just wanted to kind of take this opportunity in a more public setting to acknowledge that work and the support that they provided to the members that South Country served and our appreciation of that. So with that, those are my updates. Just a reminder, we're having our annual ANC dinner the Sunday evening at the start of the ANC conference, and we hope to see many of you there. With that, if you have any questions or comments or concerns, I'd be happy to address them this time.
Couple. One comment for this reinvestment. You gotta hand it to that committee. That was a monumental task to go through all those grant applications and narrow it down, which is difficult because probably every single proposal was a good proposal. So I really think they did an excellent job, and I just think the more I'm on South Country, the more I'm sold on this way of handling healthcare for our more vulnerable community. Thank you.
I got to share a little story of a little 99-year-old who I happen to love. I'm not personally related to her, but who broke a hip last year, and she is on these services, and she was able to move back to her own little house after a broken hip because of the services that she was able to get through her health care and afterwards, and supporting her at home. And she's back living in her little little white house with the blue shutters. And watching me walk by on my daily walk, partly because of the work that you do. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Right, thank you. Next is ditch authority. Chris? Adoption of the Waseca County drainage policy.
Good morning.
Morning.
So we're here today to revisit a couple of items from our November 5th work session, and the first one being the public drainage system care and maintenance policy. And what we're asking to do today is to have the board ask any additional questions, if any comments. There is not any more skill discussion on it. We're asking the board to formally adopt this policy so that we can get it into our land and water resources department and try and get it on our website for the general public to enjoy.
So we have a motion to formally adopt it. Yes.
I have a second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Milbreath, second by Commissioner Malter. Discussion or comments?
Chris, so if there's any, this is the first go around. If there's any changes, will it come back to the board then? Or
Yes, I do believe that changes should come back through the drainage authority in some sort of format, whether it be through an action item or as simple as a consent agenda item. But I do believe that any policy procedures that change within the public drainage system should have the knowledge and approval of the drainage authority.
Other questions or comments?
Just a thanks for really distilling 103E down to a real practical boots on the ground level for both our department and our residents. This doesn't substitute for the statute, but it helps lay people understand the statute. And I know it was a lot of work and I appreciate it. And I think it will help make us more efficient and a better servant to our property owners. So thank you.
Question.
thank you, Brian. We look at Chris all the time, but forget about Mr. Label sitting over there.
Absolutely.
Like you said, for the good reading on there. I do have a motion in a second. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carried. Next is the certification of the 2025 ditch assessment.
Yes. This is also information that was presented to you at the November 5th work session, but annually, the county board acting as a ditch authority reviews the proposed assessments that are prepared by drainage staff. Staff evaluates the health of the fund, including the proposed maintenance, repairs, debt, and administrative costs that are needed by each and every individual system for the up and coming year. And the 2025 proposed ditch assessments are there for approval and your certification. And there are further questions. I would motion to certify the 2025 proposed ditch assessments.
May we have a motion? We have a motion. Is there a second?
There is.
Motion by Commissioner Crowley, second by Commissioner Malter. Discussion. One discussion point, one request, I guess. You're in this proposal or up here, there is also some anticipated costs, correct? In some of these ditches.
Correct. You know, and what we are supposed to do is we're supposed to look at the individual system and forecast the needed funds for maintenance and repairs over the next 12 to 18 months. So a lot of these ditch systems in here, there are factors in the equation saying that, just an example, County Ditch 27, we anticipate X dollars in repairs in the 2025 construction season. So the idea is that we are assessing and we are collecting the money for those repairs in the same year that we are doing the repairs or making investment into the system, so that we do not get behind and, we are borrowing money or making an investment into that system for work that has already been done and we're collecting. So, yes, built into those proposed assessments are cost, of upcoming maintenance projects, any debt that system may have to pay. Some of those larger assessments in that sheet, a lot of those are due to the redetermination of benefit proceedings that we just went through, and we have to pay damages for the buffer strips. So there's many things factored into one number.
Yeah, and I think that all those things are important to remember when you're talking to constituents, because if there's concern about the higher assessments, that we're being more proactive in getting these repairs, which in turn is making us more aggressive to get the repairs done. And so hopefully we'll end up with a better overall ditch system. And then my only request is that on this sheet, I don't know if it would be helpful for us if we knew the watershed size on this sheet, acres in the watershed.
We could add another
Just a
category
column
to
with
it,
the,
column to it for future reference.
it would be helpful for me, I think. So.
And the only thing to bear in mind, and, kind of a quick lesson, was that years ago, we would kind of look at a watershed by acres and the amount that we were going to assess. And we would kind of divide it out and say, well, that's $10 an acre. That doesn't seem too bad. But the reality of that is far from that, because some people who are close in relationship to the ditch system for soil types pay the vast majority of the assessment. So when you equate it out to an average per acre, that sounds good. But the reality of it is far from that. But, I understand, having more information on that sheet, just to give us an idea of the size of the watershed would be helpful. I just want to warn against a mistake that previously made.
Right. And I get that there's fluctuation, and it's just an average. Okay. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Other questions or comments? We do have a motion and a second on the floor. There's no other discussion. All those in favor, aye?
I,
Those opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Thank you very much. You guys have a good day.
You do. Next, if everyone has had a chance to look at approval of the county board minute. The Waseca County Board of Commissioner meeting minutes, November 5, 2024. A motion to approve. So moved. Is there a second?
Yes.
Motion by Commissioner Christopherson, second by Commissioner Milbrath. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
I,
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consent agenda is next. Approval of bills, October 2024 monthly electronic funds transfer report, Baker Tilly engagement letter, position description, reclassification, extension of zoning permit for Joey Prieb, extension of zoning permit for Matthew and Jennifer Marzen, economic development tax abatements, partial release of exclusive agricultural use zone restrictive covenant, conditional use permit extension for 120th Street Forward and transfer of funds sheriff's office. Motion to approve as a slate.
Move it.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Malter, second by Commissioner Crowley. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Next is action items, fund transfer request, information technology, Nick Duda.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I'm here to request, we have in my budget, 6660, line item, $100,000 for our camera rip and replace project, which we anticipated to start this year. Unfortunately, it's not gonna start until next year with quotes, logistics, all of that, but we determined early 2023 that the brand we have, the high vision cameras, are no longer allowed on government, buildings, and so that is the brand that we've used since day one here, but now we can no longer use that. So now we're getting quotes, competitive quotes on the regular place and all those. So I want to transfer that to my sign fund. So when we do begin the project, then I'll move back into my budget. So I don't.
All right, looking for a motion. Motion. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Milbrass, second by Commissioner Christopherson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Okay,
Thank you. U-Care contract revision.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I can take this one quickly. This is similar to what you saw 2 weeks ago on November 5th. We were originally communicated by UCare that the revised contract would be ready for today, but as of the posting of this packet, it was not yet received. So since it was tabled to action for 11/19, we're just simply bringing it back, requesting that it be tabled again to December 3rd, when that contract revision should be completed and in our hands with appropriate time to review it.
Motion carried. So moved. Okay. Motion by Commissioner Christopherson, second by Commissioner Crowley. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Fund transfer request, Veteran Services. Morning, Chris.
Good morning. And requested that we transfer up $1,760 from my general fund to each of my special branch fund. When we did our, well, as I was doing billing this year, typically I would bring the membership dues and conference registrations, and I would put them into the grant. Unfortunately, they were not allowed this year, and I processed them through the grant. So we could transfer the funds over to coverage.
Looking for a motion. Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Krause, second by Commissioner Malter. Any discussion?
How will you be able to handle that then moving forward? Or,
I just have to know that we have it built into my budget now.
okay, just build instead of grant and scratch. Okay.
Any other question?
I guess I would just say that it's important that you're engaged and your staff is engaged in continuing to learn and grow and better serve our veterans. And so we want to make sure that this is covered, and I think it's covered in the right way. So thanks for taking care of the details.
Of course. Thank you. All right, all those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Courthouse and Public Works Collective Bargaining Agreement. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. As we know, Waseca County has 4 bargaining agreements. All 4 of them are ending this year. So we do need to do that in the diffusion process. I'm happy to report that we have 2 of the contracts, TA, this courthouse and Public Works, and they will repeat. I have summarized some of the changes that you see. Happy to report they're very minimal. Wages and some adjustments to the clothing. So unless there's any concerns or questions, I'd like to approve that resolution 2024-35.
May we have a motion to approve? Motion. Is there a second? I will second it. Motion by Commissioner Milbreath, second by Commissioner Christopherson. Discussion. No. Okay, you don't have anything to add? Between the two of us, is there anything we should add? I don't believe so. I thought, I mean, this was my first go around with labor negotiations, but I thought it went really well. I mean, we were able to come to agreement with, and the committee was very responsive to our requests, and I just thought we had good communication through the whole process.
I would agree. We have a really good relationship with the now. I mean, that's great work.
Yeah, I can reflect back to what Michael said and what you had done too with the insurance. What we had some unknowns, but mostly we had hard data in front of us, which nothing was super crazy, so it was okay. All right, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Establishing 2025 wage increases for non-union employees.
All right, so for this next one, so as standard practice, I come to you each year for the non-union staff. It is kind of our standard practice or past practice that we mirror our union contracts, so for their adjustments. And that is what I'm bringing forward today, for 2025. Unless there's any questions or concerns. Thank you for approval.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Motion by Commissioner Walter, second by Commissioner Milbreath. Discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
South Central Drug Investigation Unit Joint Powers Agreement Amendment. Morning, Sheriff.
Good morning again. Thanks for having me back up here. The only change I'm asking for is for the joint powers agreement with South Central Drug Investigation Unit. This is something that Waseca County has been involved in for a number of years. And they deal with their drug investigations and high tactical risk cases. This agreement was last signed in October of 2023. And the new agreement needs to be signed because the city of Alden used to have a police department. They were without a police department. They have now started up their police department and they're looking to join this cooperative. So because of that, we just need a new updated agreement in place to include the city of Alden. There's no fiscal impact to this agreement. So I'm asking for the approval of the addition of City of Alden and your signatures. This agreement.
May I have a motion on the floor? I would move agreement amendment. Then is there a second? Second. Motion by Commissioner Christopherson, second by Commissioner Crowley. Discussion?
Mr. Chair, one point of clarification, just because we need to from an opioid settlement standpoint. We did have our meeting yesterday morning with that group, and part of the request into the budget preparation cycle, as the sheriff said, there's no change to the fiscal impact due to this document. Just want to point out that I could scroll down, that would be helpful. The original cash match, that hasn't changed, but we are planning to use opioid dollars to offset our Waseca County specific cash match for this document in 2025. So I just wanted to point that out by means of clarification, since we're still working through some of the details of how opioid dollars are spent. And right now the board has that discretionary authority for spending those dollars. So that's the only reason I pointed out separately that approving the amendment, we're also approving the expenditure of those opioid settlement dollars to pay our equivalent cash match in 2025.
Michael, does that include all entities that are part of this joint power? Waseca County, City of Waseca, Janesville, Richland?
No, this is just the county attributable portion. Let me go back down to that. So if that is a desire too, we can certainly follow up on a separate action with that too. This doesn't preclude our ability to do that by any means. Just trying to get back down to the cash match documents. All right.
Just thinking countywide, that's money comes in. It should be shared.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a conversation. I think maybe we can follow up with the cities specifically too. I'm not sure what their implication, the city agreement was separate in terms of any settlement dollars for opioid dollars or distributions. So obviously not opposed to that, but that can be a previous action or communication too.
Somewhat relevant. How long was Alden without a police department?
I don't know that for sure.
And they were being covered obviously by the sheriff and deputies prior to that.
Correct, Cleveland County was covering their,
What is the population of Alden?
they answer.
I know, I'm asking you questions, but I'm gonna have to look up.
They are looking at hopefully adding another, they have a full-time police chief, and now they're looking at adding to that staff.
Okay.
576.
596.
76.
576. Because they had a
And growing.
police force way back and then they
Right.
dropped it on.
Yes, I would guesstimate 5 years or so approximately, where they disbanded and, everybody got pretty much home.
So it's not like that either. I'm sure response time was limited and that's why they're going back to what they did. But it's too close to the 3 lanes to be responded by.
Yeah, but I do know that they're looking at adding, again, additional staff to assist the chief.
Yeah. Any other questions on that? We do a motion in a second on the floor.
Well, I've seen in here somewhere what is the amount that we're contributing from the opioid dollars?
11,500.
So that was our full amount then.
For the county
For the county.
specific, yeah. Commissioner Milbreath's question was the other entities in the county that those opioid dollars could be used
So we should be
towards.
by helping them also. Yeah.
Yeah, we certainly can.
Google tells me that all of them lost the police department in 2018.
Long ago. All right.
Population decreased by 80.
Anything else? Oh, all right. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Public hearing on body worn cameras policy.
Yes, thank you. As previously indicated, Sheriff's Office is looking at to implement the use of body worn cameras, and prior to doing so, we must have a policy in place to proceed forward. A policy 519 was created earlier and was sent out to the public via county newsprint, Facebook, social media, a memo in the bulletin board area of the Waseca County Courthouse at the front steps. And the public could respond with any comments by telephone, by email, by Facebook, and by any means. And as of November 5th, and again, as of today, there has been no comments received and there's been no public input at a commissioner meeting that was open to the public for both those dates. So I'm looking at acceptance and approval of Sheriff's Office Policy 519 or body worn cameras and reporting systems for the Waseca Sheriff's Office. This is something that is quite popular in the wave of law enforcement to have a body worn camera policy. And this is consistent with our recommendation from the states of what's in this policy.
We're going to open the public meeting at 10:50. Is there anyone here for public comment? Anyone here for public comment? Anyone here for public comment? I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Seconded. Motion by Commissioner Milbrath, second by Commissioner Crowley. Any discussion? Hearing none. Sorry. Hearing none, the public hearing is closed at 10:51. Oh, shoot, is that an individual vote? Or no? You didn't ask for it. I did not.
That's perfect.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Now we're out.
Yeah, we would just look for consideration of approval of policy 519.
519.
Mhm.
I would move approval. Thank you. Is there a second? I would second that. Motion by Commissioner Stofferson, second by Commissioner Krause. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you. Purchase bid from Axon Enterprise for body worn cameras.
So in anticipation of the approval of body cam policy 519, we did extensive research on getting body cameras for Waseca County. Many agencies throughout the state and throughout the nation have body cameras to assist us with liability and investigation of claims and or crimes that take place in our presence. Staff, myself, Chief Deputy Gertz, went through extensive contacts with approximately 6 or 7 different vendors for body worn cameras. In addition to this, our dash cams were squads are old and they're no longer being supported. We've had some few issues of late. And we called for either parts or support and they're outdated and so they're beyond their service time. We are also looking to upgrade our tasers. We've had since approximately 2004, if I recall correctly. And they are they're beyond their life and being supported, they're electronic. And so they are also in need of replacement. So to be the most cost efficient, we looked at a bundle package and Axon was the only company that could provide a bundle package to give us a cost savings to purchase all 3 of those items, body worn cameras, dash cameras for squad cars and our tasers for our staff. And in doing so, we went out for quotes in 2023 and they were considerably high for Axon and the other vendors. I wasn't happy with those quotes, and so back here in 2024, we went back again for updated quotes, and Axon was able to lower their costs significantly without jeopardizing any of the services they provided. So in addition to having that lower quote, it's vital to have their services because the area law enforcement departments, Waseca, State Patrol, and Minnesota DNR, who we work with frequently, use Axon as well. And anytime we would arrive on a scene and work together with them, if we go with Axon, our equipment would sync up together. It's also a liability, a savings and liability, because anytime our tasers are taken out of the holster or our weapons are taken out of our holsters, the cameras automatically activate and prevent the missed opportunities for having our cameras activated. So I am recommending or asking for the board to go with their approval of the Axon bid for $267,388.40 to equip our staff and our squad cars with the body cams and dash cams for the squads and tasers. And to add to that, I also have to give credit to our Sergeant Langer, who together we went out for a grant of $40,000 would go towards the purchase price of this Axon body cam policy purchase. So that cost would be down to approximately $225,388.40 after that grant is applied. And this is a 5-year contract for this equipment purchase and service. All the data would be stored on a cloud. And so by us going with this package would minimize the workload to our IT department and would increase the efficiency of how this information is taken from a deputy to our administration office, to our county attorney's office. It's just a lot more efficient and would be reducing staff time. And the cost would be covered by public safety aid money that has been awarded to us previously and still is available.
For motion committee. I would move to approve. Is there a second? There is a second. Motion by Commissioner Carlsby, second by Commissioner Milbreath. Discussion.
Jay, is this include the jailers as well? Do they carry tasers? Do they, are they gonna be able to wear body cameras too?
As we were looking at the time, no, we were looking to add those at a little later time. It'll be one camera for the jail administrator. Body worn cam for the jail administrator.
How about the jailers?
And the taser would be included with that, but there would not be a body camera for each individual jailer.
The possibility of having like just they come in, they hook up the body camera instead of having each one has one.
Yes, yes, and that would be the intent with the tasers, because there's enough for them that are currently working to be wearing a taser, so there's one body camera and one taser available for each shift.
What? You have my other question was, do you have a tech person that's gonna run the video when it needs to be given to the county attorney? Or if someone that's, you have one designated, so they're not, each deputy can't go in and get their own and change and adjust. Delete.
Correct, that, those concerns have been, asked and are being dealt with, and the IT or the person that will be responsible for the data and transferring that will be your administration. Assistant, Carrie Garing, and Dawn and Julie will be tasked with that, responsibility. And then the supervisors, the sheriff, chief deputy, and sergeants will also have access to working with the data.
Just curious about the jailers, because sometimes they're interacting with, I think, DOC even brought that up at one part, that they should have, 5 cameras in there as well.
Correct. And that, will be added, the policy and how to, when and how to operate those body cameras is being reviewed. And what the exact policy, so some of that data is private data when you, once you enter into the jail. And so that, those policies and procedures haven't been, set in stone yet. But the intent is to have the body camera available in the jail and the tasers, updated tasers available as well. Our current jail staff does have tasers that they're carrying in the jail. We don't have them all assigned to them, but when they are working, tasers are available to them.
Do you have a time frame when you think this would be all coordinated together? I'm just curious if we can get a better deal if we order them now than order them separately.
That's the plan, is to order them, the quote is good until December, so the plan is to order them ahead of time. Or before that, before the end of the year, before the prices go up.
But you mean as far as getting an extra ones for jailers?
Yes, that's what I meant for the jailers. Would it be more feasible for us to get them now or in the bulk package? I mean, if you get 3 tasers, or sorry, 3 body cameras added to this, is that gonna give us a little bit better deal than having to order separate?
We can check into that. I don't have the answer for what the cost would be, but we can certainly check into that to see if that will be more feasible, practical, to do that immediately.
Along those same lines, anytime we adopt new technology, as long as it's the right technology, I think it's a really good idea. But in 5 years, all of this stuff will be out of date. And we'll be paying for it for 5 years. I don't know what the estimated length of service is for this. But my concern is we're gonna be back in the spot where we have to replace all of it at one time. And is there any thought about setting up some kind of reasonable rotation so that this is so that as as we get these paid for or pay down that amount, we are rotating some, so we're not having to replace it all at one time.
I should add with this, contract with Axon, the body cameras have a 2.5 year refresh. Meaning the body cameras, this is a 5 year contract, in 2.5 years, they will give us new body cameras to keep up with technology. And that does not mean the old body cameras are not working. It's just we get new technology, so new body cameras every in 2.5 years. The dash cams for the squad cars will not get a 2.5 year refresh. They will be there for 5 years, and they should be durable enough that you don't need a 2.5 year refresh. Our current squad car cameras are way older than that, and they haven't been working except for the lack of support now for a few minor glitches, but they are outdated. So in the tasers, we have been using since approximately 2004. And so they have some longevity to them too as well. So the only thing that will get the refresh will be the body cameras, but it will have to be something that is technology, electronics that will have to be on top of to the refresh in 5 years.
So you're suggesting that the cameras that are coming for the squads have a considerably longer life. We can anticipate a much longer than 5 year life, or a longer than 5 year life, that the body cams, we already know they're all going to be replaced at least once within this 5 years.
Correct.
And that tasers tend to have a longer life, so that we're not going to get 5 years out and go, oh, we're doing this whole package all over again. We're going to be looking at probably more body cams then, but not the whole package.
I can't predict the future of electronics, but yes, exactly. It would not be the whole project or whole bundle. It would be, tasers we've had for approximately 20 years. They've been some minor updates to them, but the company has been able to support them. So I expect a longer, shelf or usability life of the taser. So 5 years, we shouldn't have to have this big bundle package. And the squad car cameras, I am hopeful that 5 years, and then when 5 years come, we will have to see the status of those cameras in the squad cars and whether they're continuing to be updated or not. I don't have an answer to that, but yes, body cams will be something that is always needing to be refreshed.
And I appreciate that. I'm just thinking that, we don't want to put anything from a building to technology to whatever in place without thinking, okay, what about 5 years? What about 10 years? And having and planning for that going out. So I appreciate that narrative that helps me understand.
Yes, no, that's great. It will be a continued cost along with all of our other electronics moving forward. And by having the data stored on the cloud, will decrease the intensive labor it costs or store it locally and to transmit it. So
Just to add on to Dee's question, Homestead County's they're on 5 years of this system.
Okay.
And I think they're upgrading to the next system coming in. You can never forget how long electronics been working.
Absolutely.
You get 3 years out of them, you're doing good. Some of the squad car cameras that we've had in there before, they've gone 10 years without any issues. And as long as we have support on the back side to help, and that's what we're running into now, is we lost some support. So Axon's been around forever. They're probably one of the better companies on there. There are not very many around that will give you the support continuously without selling to some other small company.
Sure.
And then you're stuck with this. But this equipment will get used, and it'll get used hard in the profession they're in. So
absolutely.
The tasers, they've been around since 2004, and we've upgraded through the past years. They have good technology now. Like we said, you can get a lemon like a car.
Oh, yeah.
And that one will be just bad, but most of the time it works for that type of one.
I appreciate that context, Commissioner.
yeah, Commissioner Milbrath is correct in that. And then I would also say that County Attorney Cornelius has also worked with the city of Waseca as far as Axon. She may have some input as well.
Yes, I would love to talk. I love these cameras. They're amazing. I just used a whole bunch in a jury trial I had two weeks ago from a city case, and the clarity, the audio, everything is phenomenal. And this is a great product. I'm really excited that we finally were gonna have them for the county, because all the other agencies have had body worn cameras. And so I'm glad that the county's getting on board, and it's gonna be a positive step for law enforcement, because the information that we get from these body cams is phenomenal. I mean, everything from, gestures to body expressions to everything, it all comes into play for charging or not charging cases. I mean, it all comes into play, and it's been very, very helpful. So I'm very excited about this.
Thank you, Attorney.
You were saying that, the cameras activate if you pull a gun out of your holster or a taser.
That's correct. There's a sensor in the taser holster. And also it can be a sensor in the firearms holster, so that when you pull the weapon, it automatically activates in an emergency situation when there's a lot going on for an officer to remember to activate the body worn camera. Sometimes that gets missed. And
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, yes. So they can turn it on and off, and
correct, that's correct. It can be activated by a squad car inside the squad car. It can be activated by the officer touching the body camera themselves by turning it on or off. Or if the officer pulls out one of their weapons, whether it's a handgun or a taser, it might automatically be activated, which is valuable to prosecution and getting the whole story. A lot of the other vendors that we looked at don't have that capability. And so that was a huge advantage to going with this company as well for a minimal cost.
well, just the normal traffic stuff. Them getting out of the car won't activate it?
Yes, it will be activated.
Okay.
Yes, it should be activated when they get out of the car, so you'll have video footage of the in-dash squad car camera. And then you'll also have body cam footage of the officer exiting the vehicle, walking up to a vehicle and interacting with those occupants of that vehicle.
Yeah, that's good, because I know if I was wearing that camera, I'd forget to turn the darn thing on every.
There's a lot, and there's a lot of companies, the other vendors don't have that capability, so it's worth every dollar.
Yeah.
That's just activated with when, as soon as they turn the lights on, everything clicks on.
That's the way it will be set up. Yep.
So Jay, does that camera just give you a front view or give you?
So the body camera will, for the most part, I don't know what the degree, but it gives you a frontal view. And obviously it also depends on how close they are to the subject or the object in question, and further back here, the wider that view goes. I don't have the actual.
I don't know the degree, but it's good footage. And then as they're standing around, then you can see, what's going on in that.
And additionally, for the squad cameras in the vehicles, there'll be a front dash camera, and there'll be a camera in the back seat as well to monitor and record any prisoners that we're suspects that we are transporting. And it cuts down on false complaints and accusations of things that not happened.
Just have like a replay 30, if you didn't have it on, does it have like a 30-second?
There is previous reporting now, correct?
160-degree viewing and field of view.
I believe Exxon posts one of the widest angle camera.
Okay. Yeah, 160 is pretty good.
You convinced me for sure. And not that I wasn't convinced before. Anytime you can see things better, more clearly, that's a good thing. Have we accounted in the budget for installation of this equipment, or is that all included?
That's included in the package price.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Do a motion on the floor. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
CIS Consortium Updated Joint Powers Agreement.
Yes. Uh,
You're gonna get away.
Right, exactly. Yes, CIS consortium agreement needs to be updated. It needs to be reviewed every 5 years at minimum, but also whenever there's a change to in CLEOs or chief law enforcement officers, it has to be updated. So there's been no change to the actual agreement. It's time again for the agreement to be reviewed and have new signatures on the joint powers agreement.
Right, looking for a motion for the update. Well, we have a motion, is there a second? Second. Motion by Commissioner Christopherson, second by Commissioner Milbreath. Any discussion?
Jay, what's our yearly cost on this? No real contract yet, Michael? And I'll tell you, the only reason I'm asking is that 911 is going to be used for a partial payment on this, and that would help reduce our levy down.
I would have to look.
Can try to find it. That's something we can come back and identify for 2025 as well.
I'm gonna back up a little bit. I was gonna ask it and then I didn't. You got this cost savings. And you package this together and it went back there and they knocked off quite a bit. I can't remember when you came to us last summer, that wasn't done yet. So that savings has been since then?
That's correct.
Okay, and that's all been programmed into the budget, the savings? Or was these dollars were coming somewhere else, weren't they? Weren't left.
The 2024 program has $368,937 of public safety aid that is budgeted. That was a combination of things that it entailed fully the body worn cameras and the tasers as well. There's also a portion of handheld radios as well that the sheriff's still working through. But yes, it is fully covered within the budget. There's no levy implication at all pertinent to those items.
Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carried. Thank you, Derek. Next is Waseca County Code violation, dollar nuisance. Morning.
Morning.
So this would be a nuisance issue that started off as a tree setback issue. In the county, we have a zoning ordinance for how far you can plant trees from the property line, which is 20 feet. But then that started in 2009, I believe, with this two parcels in section 5 of Janesville Township. The trees existed on that parcel before 2009, so we see that as a grandfather lane or illegal non-conforming use. So that's how this started. And then we've had some exchanges with the property owners. One of the property owner not happy with the trees being so close to the property line, decided to put some junk on his property. The nuisance issue started in November 21 of 2023, so it's been like an ongoing process for a year. We've had to go back and forth with him a little bit, and it's going to be, he's not complying with UDC requirements. So as part of our nuisance issues or steps to abate nuisance issues, we do have two options in the UDC. One would be for the county board to authorize the county sheriff to work with the property owner to abate the issues, which we've tried to do for some time, and he's still not complying. And then the other one would be for the county board to authorize county staff to basically clean up the parcel and then charge them. But then as part of our process, the option that we want to go with now will be with the first option, where the county board would authorize the county sheriff's department in consultation with the county attorney's office to work with the property. That would include actions like issuing the property owner citation. So this is what we have for today for this parcel in section 5.
Does this mirror what happened in Mattawa?
Yeah, and that's still ongoing. Yeah. It's close to the same thing, but, well, this was intentional. This was
Right.
spiting. Madeline is just a junk collector. But my question would be is, okay, if we issue a citation and pays the citation, then is that a reset? Is that something, then we gotta start over again if he doesn't move it?
We don't have to start again. We can do option 2, which is basically the county cleaning it up and then charging him for that. So, in the Madawan case, I think they're going both ways. They do have a section of it that's going through the county attorney's office, and it's still an ongoing case where I have an estimate for the Madawan parcel. But then we have some other issues to finish out before we have to bring it back, estimate back to the county board before we can. So it goes both ways.
We have a couple options. We can, as Tommy said, we can clean it up and then bill them. Alternatively, what we have done a lot in the past with nuisance properties is we've said, okay, you know, go clean it up, and then we'll give you a deal on the citation. On the same token, the UDC specifically says, like, each day that you're not in compliance, you could technically get another citation. But assuming we have several options that we can go forward with.
Right, and it, you know, in the past, it seems like we haven't had quite enough teeth in it, and that's why we went and kind of redid some of our UDC there to try to get more teeth in it, so we're not always going back to the same person and trying to clean it back up again. So I guess I'd be fine with your recommendation, knowing that we're not gonna keep doing this year after year. If he doesn't, if he pays the same date but still won't clean it up, then we're just gonna have to. We gotta show that we've got teeth in it, or it's gonna happen more often throughout the county, in my estimation.
Got a couple of questions and clarify for me. This equipment and stuff that he has, this is on his property, correct?
So he has it on his property, but some of them is like on the neighbor's property, so he did that intentionally, just to.
So he moved some of it on the neighbor's
Yeah.
property.
And he's basically, he farms on his property, so the middle ground was that he can put his farm equipment on his parcel, but he has to move it. Because it's part of his business, but then he has it more like on the neighbor's property. They did do a survey, so when you go on the parcel, you see the survey maps on there, so you kind of know where the property line is, and he kind of like moved. Of the fruits.
So he moves it 10 feet over.
If it's a farm equipment, he can keep it on his parcel, but if it's not a farm equipment, he has.
I guess my concern with some of this is that we go to any farm site, we'll see this kind of equipment laying around in any farm site. We had somebody here for equalization that looked out their window and they have a boat parking lot out their window now. Cause I went and checked on that as well. I mean, there's so many violations throughout our county. And I understand this is like probably a crabbing match here a little bit, but if we go and direct this, who's to say they come in with 100 different other violations throughout the county? And you go and drive through Alma City, you can see all that as well. I guess I understand that we need to try to address this, but I don't know if we need to pick up the cost to go and clean it up and move his equipment over 10 feet as well. I'm throwing this out here. I know what the code says. I understand.
Right, so there is, yeah, there's a code there to try to regulate what you're saying throughout the county. But no, I get it. This is a little different situation than Madeline. Because it's, you can't just, there's plenty of room there, and all you have to do is slide it over 10 feet.
Right.
But there's also more value in that property, so if we had to do that, we could assess that to his taxes and get that money back, because he's not gonna forfeit it.
It was surveyed, correct? And there are flags there for the survey. He has never brought up the fact that if he looks on Beacon, it shows that the line is perfectly within his right. Okay.
I think the survey was done maybe any part of this year, because this started in November and then there was a question between Mr. Robinson and Mr. Gara. So Mr. Robinson actually paid for the survey just so that his neighbor knew where the public line was. And then started.
And I think that there's some acknowledgement that he's wrong because he's the one who specifically asked for an extension in May, but then it just still wasn't. But you can see very clearly on the pictures where the stake is and where his property is clearly on the property, on the other neighbor's property line.
Yeah, you can see that on the pictures. Wow. And the stake sitting there.
But what are the board's wishes? Want to go with option one? Begin?
If we go with option one, then with, I suppose you would give either the subcommittee updates or back to us with an update. I would move that we go with the recommendation of number one there.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
There is.
We have a motion by Commissioner Christopherson and a second by Commissioner Mulder.
Sorry, everyone. Yeah, I'm good.
Full discussion on it. Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you.
Aye.
Something that you're with, right? Administration update. Michael?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think I covered most of my stuff in work session this morning, but you know, Tina will have a couple other updates to go through there too. But anything directly for me or that you're waiting on for me or need to follow up with me on at this point in time? But no, thanks for your time this morning as well. Just a couple. Just a couple other budgetary reminders too. December 3rd, we'll plan to have another work session to finalize and as well as hear from public health. That was the one other touch point for sure. Departmentally, we're going to go through, and I think there'll be some. I know there'll be some revisements there too, as it pertains to or compares to the preliminary levy that was certified, preliminary budget program that was certified for public health. We are starting to see regression in interest rates and earnings, which was certainly anticipated, but there's another 25 basis point chunk this week from Magic Fund, at least those 7-day yields. So not surprising, but kind of charting that path going down still. Commissioner Krause, you had something?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember my question.
Oh, okay.
Where are we at with the town? Were we gonna talk to the townships or have possibly the
Cannabis?
cannabis? Thank you, Commissioner Mulder.
Reading your mind.
I could not. Okay. Have you gotten responses back from them of what they wanted to do? Or
I've only heard.
did you forget about it? Or?
I've only heard from 2 townships directly. I can make more of a proactive effort. If you would like to meet with them specific to that, we can. I wasn't planning to meet about cannabis specifically. And Tammy can remind me of this too, but Brock and I chatted a couple of months ago. The winter meeting we're planning with townships is to go through kind of an assessor 101, the local board of appeal and equalization, county board of appeal and equalization education, and just understanding the role of the county assessor and what we can and can't do to try to better educate, yes, but better administrate those respective meetings as well too, and define people's expectations coming into those rooms for what can actually be done or can't be done legally, statutorily. If you want to have one per student to cannabis, we can as well. Really all I was looking for from the townships is acknowledgement that the county already administrators their zoning ordinance and procedures and signature signing off on those JPAs just to acknowledge cannabis separately. So
And that you need those in by January, right?
In theory, not really, but the moratorium itself, which we don't have by statute, would expire as of January 1st, yes. But realistically, there isn't going to be anything happening. There's no issue. Licenses that have been issued from the state at this point, they're still going through the early portal process, the social equity applicants. Nothing has formally been released on that, unless it was this week that I'm unaware of. So there isn't a huge sense of urgency, but it would be nice to have them in place, yes.
Well, has there been email correspondence with the townships?
I've only attempted one email blast from the last spreadsheet we had online.
From last summer, then probably.
August,
Yeah.
September, whenever we first looked at that.
That might take just a little more of a push.
Yes, yeah, and I can do that.
I did have specific conversation with Janesville Township.
Okay.
Happened to have the occasion to talk to their secretary and.
Great.
And tried to make it clear that, like, this is something you should just do, because.
Yeah.
You don't do the planning and zoning, and so
Mhm.
let's just, I like all my papers in the right folder.
Yeah.
So, if help from the board here in communications with the township needs to happen,
Yeah.
let me know, because I am happy to go bug people. I'm used to doing that.
You have better contacts, relationships, and frequency with the individuals, and I'm pretty sure I've emailed it to you folks as well. I can do that again, so it's at the top of your inbox if that's easier. But yeah, I mean, if you happen to run into those individuals and garner a signature, that's awesome. Or knowing that it's maybe a contentious topic and for some of the townships, and they're maybe not quite as up to speed as others. If you think it's helpful to try to turn around and schedule something, I can certainly try to do that too.
Well, now that harvest is over and it's wet and all of that, some of our township people will be more available than they have been in the last few weeks.
Sure. Would you like to just try to get some things scheduled for mid-December to invite them all in? Okay. So I'm going to look then the week of the 16th. Unless I'm disagreed with.
Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday works better for me.
It's Thursday or Friday.
Just throw that out.
Okay. Is that infringing too close to Christmas holiday, or would that be okay still? Okay. 19th of December. With the townships. Any time? By default, I would have said 6:30.
PM.
Dealer's choice.
Damn, let's get it done. I'm proud.
Well, that's
With-
probably up quite a bit.
With this group, maybe AM would be preferred. I'm not sure. I'm open to anything. Reasonable? Yeah. Okay. Something else? Sorry.
It's 6:30 PM here. Here.
Yes.
In the large room.
Good thing you checked. We'll have that paperwork ready.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else, Mike? There's a lot, but.
Melissa can touch on our HR announcements if you want to.
I did supply you guys with an update. You see one typo, those are November anniversaries. As you see, recruiting is slowing down a little bit, but that doesn't mean that we're not ordering. So there is, open enrollment starting tomorrow, so watch your emails for instructions on that. I should have that out today, for you guys. Unless there's anything you have for me or questions?
Questions for HR? Anyone? Good. Community development update. Christina, good morning.
Good morning. I am going to be brief. I have a call in 15 minutes with Darren Fuller with USEDA that I need to also pull together, so I want to make sure. First off, thank you very much for those who came to the Green Scene event. I've heard lots of accolades for its success and conversation about when will we do it again. They did share with us the list of people who had signed in. We had about 35 people there, and it was a very nice event. Ann Fitch's retirement farewell is this Thursday night. I only got one reservation from Dee. If anybody else wants to go, I have to reserve through the portal of membership. So, Brian, you want to go? Should I add anybody else?
Are you
Okay.
I'll be there for a while.
Okay. So,
And that
okay.
same evening as Representative Peter.
7. So just 2 of you, did we hear?
But one's early, Ann's
Yeah.
starts at 5.
Yes.
I think Ann's actually starts at like 4.
4 to 6.
I got it in the calendar.
Oh,
It goes until 6.
yeah, and then that's other one, that's Petersburg is 6:30, right?
7.
We down there.
7.
Thanks, Brad, Brian, and Michael. And Doug, are you saying you too?
I think so, yeah. What day was it again?
It's Thursday.
Thursday, the 21st. Ann starts at 4:30
Yeah.
and goes till
5:30, yeah, must be 6.
6. And John Petersburg starts at 7 and goes till 8:30.
Yeah, and I had them both down like I was gonna go.
Okay, I just need to make the reservation for you, that's all.
Okay, yeah.
So you're all gonna be,
And that's at the mill, correct?
pardon?
That's at the mill.
I think so, yeah.
Petersburg is on the calendar.
Working very closely with Woodseth and Brian Tumper on getting the next bit of information that the EDA is asking for, and that's the call. Starts at noon. Are there any questions off of what I've handed you?
What did we think changed with the Janesville property?
Oh, so we did not get any offers. I'm gonna say what changed is, according to statute, when they make the offer, they have to tell us what the property is going to be used for. As well as there's a 12-month. You can't just buy it and sit on it. According to statute, you must begin development within 12 months. So I think that's part of the difference, is that according to statute, you have to say what benefit you're bringing.
Was there some maybe misinformation? A person approached me and stated that this EDA property, I don't know if the individuals thought that you had to build something that was going to employ people. That is what I had heard back, you know, that it couldn't be self-storage or what have you. It had to be some type of business that was going to employ people at it. And I don't know how they would have come up with that.
So I can tell you that according to state statute, when the EDA would evaluate any property, it is evaluated on capital expenditure and job creation. And then it goes on to say, or greater community benefit. If they had been the only one who offered,
who's to say that they wouldn't have been the only benefit, right?
Right.
So
So
that's,
job creation was most likely listed before community benefit.
it's all
maybe
in
they-
one sentence.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was all in one sentence. I did not receive one question, not
Okay.
one email, not one phone call. Nobody called for clarification once the request was out there. So yeah, it's like. So
So we'll try again.
right.
the EDA will address that tomorrow at their meeting. We'll talk about it. I kind of think at this point in time, wait till spring. A lot of the economic development periodicals that are coming out are saying that money is still high. And that interest rates are not dropping as they anticipated. And so expenses are continuing to rise. So I would say that I would wait to put it back out on the market, maybe till spring.
And I haven't read into the paperwork of it, but it has to be built on within a 12-month period.
Has to start development.
Within a 12-month period. So that is going to stifle some of it right now, for sure.
Yeah, I think so. This time of year to know how the difference is, because specifically in the purchase and sales agreement, there would be some discussion as to a development agreement. And any deed, according to statute, would contain a clawback clause. And so I tried to gather as much information as possible regarding, there is casement under Highway 14. There's no pipe in it, but there is casement that would allow connection to city water and sewer for Janesville. We confirmed with MnDOT about access. We did not do a wetlands delineation. We did provide all of the documentation for the one that was done. There was a wetlands delineation report, but they did not pursue the formal certification when that report was done. And so, but we provided all of that information, gave them contacts with MnDOT, gave them contacts with the city of Janesville, and so that they could answer any of those particular questions.
Does the city of Janesville extend beyond the 14 bypass to the south?
Not yet, no, but it is, they did pursue, putting that casement in the built Highway 14 for the potentiality. So I think that as with most cities, if they extended beyond their city limits for service, there would be some type of a development agreement that would say that if city limits ever reached there, they would annex in. That's generally the way they handle it.
I think one of if my understanding is correct, one of the casement is under the new 14, but there is no defined right of way between Janesville and the casement. And that's going to be a slowdown because people have to figure that out then before.
There is a block of land between the city and the highway, north of the highway. But I believe that the casement was put in, and the intention from the paperwork that we pulled on the purchase is that we would allow an easement to continue through our property to the property south of ours to allow for future development.
Thank you for the update. We appreciate it.
One last thing, I remembered when we were talking about Mr. Petersburg, we did get the resignation from Tom Sexton, given his new responsibilities with the legislature, the planning commission, so we'll need an additional planning commission individual. If you have any thoughts, we would very much appreciate that from staff standpoint going into 2025. So just wanted to make you aware of that. He dropped that off for me the end of last week.
That's your district, right? Or that's district specific. Planning commission.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
I have a name.
Good.
No, I have a name.
We need to review Board of Adjustment membership as well at some point.
Yes, we do.
We do.
I didn't know if I should bring it up or not, but yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. We have to, we each need to look at who our designee is there and whether they're available. We've got some guys whose health is failing and who can't be there. So we need to look at some of the details of their service and make sure they're going up and they're ready to go.
Can we have those two items, the roster for Board of Adjustment and be uploaded to all of our, with the district they're in and the vacancies that may be coming? That's gonna help me out.
Yeah. And with the BOA one, we do have, I think, some double dipping happening in one of the districts too. So that makes the conversation easier and need to turn over because we do have two representatives from the same district right now.
Something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll send that out to you.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
No? Commissioner reports? Mr. Walter, are you ready to start us off?
I can. We're going back to the 5th.
Okay.
We met, it was election day. We had a work session, we had our board meeting. On the 6th, I did the NACO Human Services Committee leadership meeting in the afternoon. On the 8th, Friday the 8th, I met with a subcommittee of the library board to discuss staff development and to talk about how staff development is happening, what monies are going toward it, how it gets split up. So just so the board could have a clear understanding. Because the library is doing all that stuff, but it's not easily reflected in their budget right now. So we had some good discussion again last night about how that might be more transparent for board members so we know what's going on. Also came for the Board of Canvas in the afternoon. Yay, our election staff, as always, phenomenal work at a crazy time. And wow, what good for Waseca County. Amazing.
And flawless reporting.
And flawless reporting, which did not happen everywhere. So kudos. I just got to mention a community thing on the 9th, Saturday the 9th, I went to the musical that JWP was putting on, Newsies.
Cool.
And those kids did such an awesome job. It was just awesome. I was just so impressed. On the 11th, it was Veterans Day. And I had a meeting with Region 9 staff just to kind of visit and build relationship, and that was good. On the 12th, State of the County address. That was great fun. Yes, it was. It was great to be there with most of you. It was great. 13th, I met with my NACO leadership cohort first thing in the morning virtually. Then we had a NACO Rural Action Caucus that was also a virtual meeting. And I listened to that while I drove up to the Twin Cities for a Think Like a Strategist training offered by AMC. I would recommend it to any commissioners who have interest in that kind of personal development. Thought it was very helpful to make me think like a strategist. The 14th, started with SHAC Executive Committee in the morning and then AMC Futures, which is why I wasn't at Green Scene. I'm glad that there were others, can't be everywhere. And I need to set up a little time with you to talk about some of the topics we had there, because I got some questions. It always raises questions for me about what we're doing and what we should be doing. And thank you for covering SWCD basis that evening. Friday, was futures again in the morning. Then at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I had a virtual meeting, follow-up with library staff development. And Friday night, I attended the 4-H award banquet. And my husband and I sat with Commissioner and Mrs. Krause. And we had a great time and good food, and that was awesome. And let's see. Yesterday we started with a virtual meeting on opioid funding and where that's going and how it's getting, how we're setting up the system for managing that money and using that money and drawing in our community partners to help us figure out what those priorities are. And some of that work is already happening, but we have a way forward now. Then I was in the cities for a joint leadership team meeting yesterday afternoon about concerning public health, and we spent 3 hours sorting through work plans for the next year and next 5 years. And then last night I was down in New Richland for the library board. And I think that's the second time as a commissioner I've been to the New Richland Library. GPS told me I was there, and it's like, no, I'm at the grocery store. Well, it's right across from the grocery store. And the sign is kind of little, and it was raining and super dark by the time we got there, but what a charming little library. So, and here we are.
Thank you, Commissioner Mulder. Commissioner Christopherson. Back to the 5th election day, we had the board meeting. 6th, we had union negotiations in the morning. And Thursday, the 7th, I had South Country Health Alliance compliance committee meeting at 8, and then Joint Powers Board at 9. Now, Leona didn't get into any financial things today. It was more about programming, but we came, there was, and I don't understand it all, but there's a rebasing that they did this year. And I'm not quite certain what all that entails, but it put us behind. Financially, we were looking like we were gonna have a positive year, and then now it looked like we were 4 million, 3 million or something like that in the red because of this rebasing. Well, the state did a correction. And so we're gonna get most of that back by the end of the year. So it looks like we might end up flat for the year for finance, which would be a win. So, it's the 7th, then nothing on the 8th. Just nothing all the way till the 14th. We had green seam, 4 o'clock. And then we had I went to SWCD that night at 6:30. 15th, Gaberva, went to Gaberva and Mankato on policy board. The 18th yesterday, we had opioid funding committee virtual at 8 o'clock. And then I had a virtual with Sarah at noon to prepare for the Mid-Prairie Joint Powers Board meeting this afternoon. And that brings us to today. Thank you, Commissioner.
Eric, just to comment on the SWCD meeting really quick, because the board took action on November 5th for that joint powers agreement. The SWCD board looked at it and tabled it until their next meeting. So just to clarify, that hasn't been finalized as of yet.
Yeah, and I don't know if it didn't get into their board packet or if it just wasn't looked through enough, but not all the board members had seen it. So they wanted to table it from it. I don't anticipate any issues here.
Well, we'll go back to the fifth. We voted that day, we had a work session. I had an afternoon meeting with Michael and the chair. On the sixth, I had a city council meeting I attended. On the seventh was the Waseca Area Foundation Awards. Friday, I got to meet with DNP on the Clemson meeting, sign off on everything. On the ninth, I had CWC. Monday was Veterans Day. Tuesday, the 12th, I had meeting with the court security grant. And we finalized that, and the grant should be coming out shortly. I had chief board retirement that evening. Suspension meeting. State of the county after that. On Wednesday, I met with the farmer of the year that was chosen from the UO extension. It's the Tony Schlick family from the New Richland area. So I made contact with them and notified them. I attended Janesville's Waseca Area Foundation Awards. Thursday the 14th, the Green Scene meeting. On Friday the 15th, I had a neighborhood service center benefit at the Legion. On the 16th, I had coffee with commissioners. On the 17th, I had another neighborhood fundraiser at the VFW for the neighborhood service center. I also met with a couple individuals from the Snowmobile Association to discuss trail concern. Yep, today, Monday, I had a MBAC child development meeting, and then afterwards I had an MBAC joint meeting. Bring us to today's work session. Thank you. What's your problem?
On the fifth, we had a work session and board meeting, and then township in the evening. Thursday the 7th, planning commission going over the UDC code that evening, and then to the 12th of November, county extension at 4:30, and state of the county at 7 p.m. Guys really did a nice job up there. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It was very good. I mean, pretty few in attendance, but I think it'll grow, not every year, but very good information. So, Thursday, the 14th, green theme, that network session. The chairman, the board, board chair of Green Theme, Waseca. And actually with the school, UNW was Waseca. And UNW was out there. Found out later, I was talking, where he worked was out at a dairy farm out by Waseca on the Clifford Dorothy Dorn farm. So it got to be a real interesting conversation, but I would have never been able to have that connection if I hadn't. So, but Green Team always keeps at least one farmer, active farmer on the.
Where's he?
At LaSalle.
Huh?
LaSalle. So. That's about 85. From,
What's
But. So, yeah, would have thought. And then, Friday evening was the 4-H extension. Awards banquet, which was excellent. And that brings us to today at our 8 AM work session.
Thank you, Commissioner Krause. 11:05, 8 AM work session, 9:30 board. General election, Wednesday the 6th, I had Waseca Lakes Association in the AM. Friday the 8th, I met with Michael in his office.
Did we have union negotiations the next week?
On Thursday,
No, Wednesday.
Wednesday. The 6th?
Or is that the one where I called you guys and I had that in my phone wrong? I had it in my phone, maybe.
The 6th we had. Are you talking about the 6th or the 7th right now?
The 6th, the Wednesday. Wednesday the 6th. When did we?
I didn't have union stuff that day. I have other
No.
things happening that
You
day.
called in on Monday. I was in.
Okay, that must have been the 30th, and I must have had it in as a placeholder on the 6th.
Oh, okay.
That's possible.
Gotcha.
That's my mistake.
November 12th. Was the state of the county at 6 PM. I did not make it to the Woodville Township meeting. Wednesday, the 13th, 8 AM was Public Works. 6 PM was the Waseca County Historical Society. Thursday, the 14th, from 1 to 2 was the